And welcome back to another episode of Lost It Down, a very special episode, one of my favorite episodes that we do. It is our mock draft episode with all of you listeners and fans. We can't thank you enough for putting in the time to come on and help us. We know that this is a fun experience for you. It's a very fun experience for us. But on top of that, David, before I throw it over to you and we get a little conversation going, we have to give a very special congratulations to our podcast partner, Stephen Weed, who is officially married. Kylie didn't run at the altar like we all thought she would. Instead, they are married. They are very happily married. And what a time it was. A lot of the mock drafters out there were at this thing. So just an absolute time and a half, David. But had to get that out of the way. How are we doing over in Northeast Ohio?
Same old, man. Pretty good. Excited for the draft.
I know it's Thursday. This one snuck up on me.
I was just gonna say, man. We're pretty on this for like a month and a half before the draft. I feel like I blinked and suddenly it's draft week, and I haven't been paying attention much over the last month.
Plus, it sucks as we get older. I get so tired of the cliches, but it's so true too. I just want 25 hours in a day. Give me an extra hour to do things. 24 ain't enough. When you were growing up, when you were a kid, I swear I was always like, how do people bitch about time? There's so much of it. And now it's that like uncomfortable, like, hey, David, do you want to hang out? Yeah, I should. What do you think about the second week of June? Like, that's where we're at in life now.
Ain't that the truth, man? Ain't that the truth? There's not enough hours in the day.
It's miserable. It's miserable, but at least this is one of those weeks where you kind of get to put the misery on the back burner and have a good time. We do have the NFL draft. We're going to get into the mock draft here very shortly, but before, we're going to get into some quick NFL news before we throw it into the mock draft, and then we're going to send you guys on your way. Have a great little week here planned for everybody. But first, David, let's jump right into it. Today, we got news that Zach Wilson, the former number 2 overall pick with the New York Jets, was dumped, and I mean dumped, to the Denver Broncos, a pick exchange of 256 to 203. So you're moving up 53 picks if you're the Jets, but you're also paying half of that man's contract. Guess it's just time to rip the Band-Aid off if you're the Jets. It's the only thing that makes sense here, right?
Yeah, I mean, you saw what he could do after, what has it been, 2 years? Last year, right? Rookie season's awful. You can give a quarterback some leeway after a bad rookie season, but to not have any market improvement after last season where you've got it's not like a Raiders or Browns drafted a QB in the top 5 and have no roster built around. This is like a fully loaded, just needed Aaron Rodgers roster, and he still was mediocre. So they're just cutting their ties. They know they're saving money by paying him to play for somebody else. That's the way I look at it. So it's as simple as that.
Well, it is weird because we are very low on Zach Wilson here. But at the same point, I have to at least say for Denver, this is such a low risk. I wouldn't even say high reward, but it's a low risk play where at the very worst now, you go into Thursday and you don't have to pressure yourself to move up for a quarterback. At worst comes to worst, if you're the Broncos, you look in the mirror and say, we're not a quarterback away. We have a couple of years before we're really competitive. If we have to roll out with Jarrett Stidham, with Zach Wilson, with, I can't even remember third guy off the top of my head right now, might be Ben DiNucci out there, but whoever it is,
accurate.
It's like they're not going to win anyways. Go get your quarterback next year or the year after, however you want to do it, but don't, throw yourself down the river for this rebuild. But speaking of the Broncos, let's go into some uniform talk, David. There's 3 teams that we have to address with new uniforms. One of them being the Denver Broncos. And I am amazed. I mean, truly amazed that we're at a point where dozens and dozens of people can talk about uniforms, can look at these uniforms, roll them out, and these still get green lit. How do we not have the Orange Crush John Elway Broncos as a permanent home and road jersey yet?
We talk about it all the time. I don't just go back to what people love. You don't have to be special. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just go back to the ones that you know that worked. Body of the Broncos. I hate the uni unveil. I just hate
it's
it.
been so
All
bad.
around.
Well, they
All
have
around,
these.
I hate it.
Did you
They
see
have
the
amazing
triangles?
colors, but they have amazing color schemes. And yes, I saw them. It's awful. And the first time I saw the white, with what looks like an orange bolt, but it's not. It's just like the pattern. And I was like, are we the Chargers? The first time I saw it, I was like, I thought that was a bolt. And I'm like, I think we're playing for the wrong city. But
I was getting Syracuse or Illinois football vibes. And I don't even mean that as a shot at either of those programs. It's just these are not a professional football uniform.
No, and they have such good color. I mean, that's a good color scheme. You can do a lot with that color scheme, right? Like, I'm not crazy to say that. It's just it's crazy that that's what they come up with, and they were like, yes.
I was saying it earlier to a couple of our listeners here, actually a couple guys that are going to be making picks earlier or a little later in the show. But with Zach Wilson coming in, the only thing that I can hold out hope for is that you keep the Coors Light, you keep the mountains as a factor. Imagine this. Every single time Zach Wilson throws a game-sealing interception, the numbers turn blue, like a Coors Light. That's how you get me on board with these jerseys. The only way. But we will have to go now to your Cleveland Browns. And we had been talking about this a couple weeks ago even. The white face masks are back, David. How awesome is that?
I'm happy they did it. The white face masks it might not seem like a big change, but it's a great change in the right direction in terms of uniforms for the Browns. So I'm excited.
There's a weird thing about face mask where it shouldn't feel like such a big deal, but like for instance, that Detroit Lions uniform last week, going with the blue face mask, it is such a subtle thing, but it can make a jersey. And the white face mask on the Browns, you said it a couple weeks ago, cardiac kids, 1980s, it feels like the great times of the Browns. I love it. And last but not least, the Detroit Lions get their new uniforms. Did we talk about this one last week? I can't even remember if we did on the show, but at the very least,
I don't think we did. I don't think we did.
All right, that makes me feel better. It's one of those things. I've been talking to all these Lions fans throughout the last week around Steven, and I think that I got lost in the sauce. These jerseys, these Detroit Lions jerseys, are some of my favorite, like, new subtle changes I've ever seen in football. I don't have the only note I guess I will say, we don't have to put city names over top of numbers on road jerseys. You're wasting space. Make the numbers bigger. It's the only subtle thing I have. Got to tell you, too, that alternate, the black jersey, the blue helmet.
Oh, I was just gonna say, man, the helmet is so spicy hot on that. And like I want to get that alternate jersey for my closet. Like that's one for the collection.
It is, and that helmet too. I know some people were like, they look like the Panthers.
No,
how do they look like the Panthers? Different
what
number? Different or number color, different pant color. The helmet. The Panthers have never had any blue helmet. It's just a lazy take. You saw black and blue and you decided Panthers. The Lions did it right. Home run. I'd say 9.9 out of 10. Perfection. But Bill Tobin, last thing I wanted to say before we get into the mock draft here. Bill Tobin, instrumental figure in putting together the 1985 Bears. Actually an executive for them, became GM soon after that, who drafted then Marshall Faulk and Marvin Harrison Sr. in Indianapolis as GM later in life. And last but not least, the father of Bengals, director of player personnel, died at 83 last week. And the reason I really wanted to talk about this guy is that this is draft week, obviously. And one of the most iconic draft moments in television history happened with Bill Tobin when Mel Kiper got pissed off that the Colts drafted linebacker Trev Alberts at pick 5 instead of Trent Dilfer. And you had Bill Tobin go on a rant in the locker room when asked about it. Who the hell is Mel Kiper anyways? And without that happening, who knows how long it takes until the draft coverage is the way it is today. Bill is going to be missed, and I know Duke Tobin, Bengal fans, big fan of him. they are obviously extending their support and condolences as well. But had to bring up Bill Tobin here, and rest in peace to a legend in his own right. But David, with that being said, we want to remind you guys that this year's Lost It Down mock draft is brought to you by Abbey Turner Creative, your one-stop shop marketing agency specializing in branding, high-end photography, fashion, and more, especially if you are around our age, where there's college graduations, engagements, Steven's wedding. Let's go. Let's go. Baby pictures, you name it. Feels like they're happening every other weekend. Abbey Turner Creative is the only way to go. Check her out for yourself at abbyturnerphoto.com. That's Abby, Abbey, or on her Instagram page at Sawdad in Sapphire. Again, abbyturnerphoto.com. Without further ado, guys, this is a lot of time, a lot of work, but I know that you guys all enjoy it, and I can't wait to do it, hopefully again next year and for a lot longer to go. Here is the Lost It Down fan mock draft.
Let's get it.
We start our mock draft with the Chicago Bears, and we welcome on a very special guest, longtime listener and friend, Ross Kirkton. We have two of you Bears fans this year taking picks, top 10, 2 picks. Not that much, I guess, intrigue right now, Ross, but I have to ask you, are we doing what everybody's expecting you to do at 1?
Well, happy to be here, Wally. And yes, with the first pick, the Chicago Bears will select Caleb Williams.
Now, I have to ask you, just because this feels like it's been written in Sharpie now for months, was there ever a little bit of doubt in your head saying, maybe I go another direction here?
Well, personally, I was one who wanted to keep Fields anyway. Once Fields was no longer an option, I feel like the best path forward for the Bears is Caleb Williams. And to all my Fields truthers out there, it's time to let it up a little bit. It's time to be excited. We got a potential playoff roster, and you don't get that very often sitting at 1. So let's get excited a little bit. Let's stop nitpicking at Caleb Williams. Let's just be excited.
Are we going to get 4,000 yards from a passer in Chicago? Is this the guy?
I sure hope so, Wally. I don't know how much longer I can go without seeing, either 4,000 yards or 30 touchdowns. I mean, crazy 2 stats that haven't been hit by a Bears quarterback.
It's absolutely insane. So I guess now I will ask you, because we are 8 picks away from our buddy Adam Alfonso picking for you guys at 9. What are you guys thinking at this point? Are you looking at that 9th pick? Way down the line, but what are we thinking?
I think the Bears can go a lot of different directions with that pick and be okay. I think if you're looking at a guy like Odunze at 9, I think adding another weapon, especially with Keenan Allen's age, I don't think you can go wrong there. And if you're sitting at 9 and you don't really like the wide receivers you're looking at, I think there's potential to trade back and fill some interior D-line, possibly edge needs there. But, I also think the Bears walk out of this draft with a couple of holes still. And Ryan Poles has shown that he's willing to go out in the trade deadline for better or for worse. You had Claypool, that was a miss, but then you have a guy like Sweat, who comes in and makes, an extreme impact. So I don't expect them to address everything in this draft. And I don't think it's out of the question for Poles to trade up and go get Marvin Harrison too.
So, get me excited, Ross.
I mean, I've gone through it all. It feels like the Bears are right on the cusp of being a playoff contender, of maybe making a run. But I've been here before, so trying to temper some expectations a little bit.
I'm glad you actually said that. You're leading me into my last question for you today. If you do go Caleb Williams, which it feels like is as close to a lock as possible right now, what are the appropriate expectations for year 1 next year?
I think Realistically, probably 10-7.
Let's go.
I think that's what I would expect. I don't expect Caleb Williams to come out, just gunning, but I'm hoping we can see 3,500 yards, keep the interceptions down, and take care of the ball. I think the roster's in a good enough spot right now. You get a few special plays from Caleb a game, and I think it's playoffs.
Well, good. I tell you what, Caleb Williams, we just got to figure out, is he ready for bear weather? That's the question, baby.
Yep, he better learn real quick. It doesn't stay warm long in Chicago, so we'll figure that out.
Well, you heard it here first. Ross has the Windy City taking Caleb Williams with the first overall pick. Ross, you're the man. We really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We want to thank Ross again for coming back on, picking Caleb Williams to start us off, which takes us to Washington. And David, without Washington fans on the show to pick, it's going to be my duty today to take that second pick for him. And everybody knows we're stuck between Drake May and Jayden Daniels. So what is Washington going to do? I am going to say with the second pick of the 2024 LOD mock draft that the Washington Commanders take LSU quarterback Jayden Daniels, the small guy. That's where we go. Little different.
The small guy, but maybe the best quarterback in the draft. Wally, why Jayden Daniels over, say, Drake May, who I think a lot of people had going to Washington maybe as early as a month ago?
This is going to potentially be stupid, but I think you'll get what I'm saying. Washington just came off Sam Howell, UNC quarterback, very similar, obviously very similar offense as they both went to UNC. I almost feel like they need a facelift, a culture change in Washington, and almost like what they did back with the RG3, where instilled a little bit of fast, a little bit of modern offense into Washington. Jayden Daniels is perhaps the biggest boom or bust quarterback in this draft, and I think they take a home run swing. And even if it doesn't work, at least this way, they're going to be right back there next year picking top 5 like they're accustomed to doing.
With this pick, what do you think he brings to the team, and how do you think they draft? If they make that pick, how do they move about the rest of the draft?
Well, this is one of the most unique quarterback prospects I can remember, in the sense that he is wildly undersized, is a very slight frame, yet he is fearless. He seeks out contact half the time, which scares the hell out of me because you can't do that in the NFL. I think they're going to get that fixed, but the biggest issue with him, or at least the biggest concern, is he pulled it down and ran 40% of the time when, on dropbacks in college. That's not something, I guess, you can't really transition to the NFL well, but we're really crossing our fingers if you're a Washington fan that you kind of get that Kyler Murray, that Lamar Jackson playmaking ability where it opens up things down the field. And with those wide receivers, I think Washington would be thrilled to have a guy like Jayden Daniels. But with that, David, I'm going to throw it now to the third picker in the draft, the New England Patriots and Ryan Hill. Let's go and hear what he's doing there. Once again, picking for the New England Patriots. If you were with us last year for the mock draft, you remember him well. Former classmate of mine in Ohio Media School, Ryan, King of the Hill. Ryan, how are we doing, first of all?
I'm excited. Draft season's upon us. Usually as a Patriots fan growing up, I didn't get excited for the draft, but now I look forward to it. I understand what Browns fans around me felt all these years now, so I'm counting down the days. I'm ready for draft day. Thursday can't get here soon enough.
Yeah, when the draft starts and you already see your team's initials at the bottom of the screen, that's right when it becomes fun. And as Raiders fans, as Browns fans, we're pretty used to it. So you know what? I hate to tell you this, Ryan. We're happy to welcome you. Welcome to the floor with us, buddy. We love you.
I'm getting used to this feeling now. I was praying for a top 5 pick all year, and here we are. We got it.
Yes, you did, and I'm very interested to hear what you actually do with it here. We have 2 quarterbacks already off the board. It is our third pick, so Ryan, let's hear it. Do we have a third quarterback in a row to start the draft?
I'm afraid we don't, because with the third pick of the 2024 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots select Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver of The Ohio State University.
So naturally, the first question has to come. You're like me. We're diehard Buckeye fans. Is
Correct.
this a Buckeye homer pick? Or is this, like, how are we going with the quarterback position going forward here if they go Marvin Harrison?
So, in a sense, we just saw the Mac Jones thing kind of fade out. It didn't work with Mac Jones. I feel like New England here has failed Mac in a sense because they didn't put weapons around him. We got Kendrick Bourne's like our wide receiver one. We don't have that guy for that young quarterback to get the ball to that. I know if I throw a 50-50 ball up, this guy can get it. We don't have those playmakers out there that's getting the separation. So I feel like if you go out there and you put another young piece in there without having that receiver to depend on, you're just setting him up for another Mac Jones. And I don't want to do that. Nothing against the quarterbacks that are on the board. I know Drake May's still there. He looks like a great talent, strong upside. But if we don't go out there and get a playmaker, what are we going to do for him at this point? You're throwing the ball to nobody, and we're going to kind of just sit there and have nothing to do again and look pitiful on offense.
Well, and this is coming on the heels. You and I had a conversation before today. I've had a couple. Next year, we might have to make trade changes to the mock draft.
Right.
You don't think that the Patriots are going to be picking at 3, or at the very least, you don't want them to. So I know you took Marvin Harrison here in this scenario, but I'd love to hear what you expect to happen come next Thursday.
For me, if we take Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm doing backflips all night long, and I can't do a backflip, but we're going to fucking try. But in a dream scenario for me, I know we have a lot of holes. There's a reason we're picking at 3. This team has been left in shambles post-Tom Brady era, and now we're post-Bill Belichick era. So it's time for this new regime to kind of get their footprint on this team. I would love for Minnesota to call us and be like, hey, here's our 2 first-round picks this year. They made that trade for a reason. They obviously want to trade up and get a quarterback. I heard they're big on Drake May. So if Drake May's still there at 3, they don't want us taking him. So let's go ahead and make a deal. Let's move back to 11 and 23. Throw in I don't know if they would be willing to throw in a first next year or a second next year as well. But, take whatever you can get, move back, draft potentially a tackle. And then if Michael Penix is there, or even Bo Nix, I'm a Michael Penix guy. That's the one I would love to see the Patriots end up with in the end. But I think you got too many holes. Picking at 3, yeah, you can definitely get a generational talent with Marvin Harrison Jr. like the pick I just made here, or you can take Drake May and kind of be, in my opinion, we're going to be in the same spot as we were with Mac Jones. But I would love to trade back, draft a tackle, because you don't have a left tackle with Trent Brown leaving, and we saw how abysmal that offensive line was last year. So you got to start shoeing up those positions, and then you can draft maybe a playmaker at like 23, or you can draft Penix at 23 and you're still sitting at 34. It's a deep wide receiver class, so you can still get some key pieces around there and help a young quarterback that way, as opposed to just going at 3 and just picking a quarterback and being like, here's what we got. We got nothing for you. Now let's make this work.
Well, and the Patriots, it at least seem to be entertaining your thought process here, because there has been smoke for months now about that number 3 pick. When we're talking about the Raiders, we're talking about the Vikings, we're talking about any of these teams that potentially could move up. Who is it that we're talking about them moving up with? It's New England, and God forbid if it's not them, Arizona.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if it's not New England, it's Arizona, and the last I heard is the Chargers, because I feel like if Marv slips past 3, it looks like Arizona's going to take him. And then at 5, you could see the Chargers and Vikings start making a deal. But if I'm the Patriots, I'm like, hey, Minnesota, you want to make this trade? Let's make this trade happen. Drake May's sitting right here. Come get him. Because I don't want to see us set up another young quarterback for failure. It's just it's not a good situation to come into. I would rather just have to wait another offseason and go into next year's draft trying to figure out a quarterback. Now, I have to look at who all's coming in, but I'd rather do that and use this draft to fill in other holes.
And that's how teams like the Raiders, teams like the Browns get used to drafting top 5. So for your sake, I, like you, would hope that, maybe we take a more mature approach to this and don't just go for the shiny object in front of us.
Absolutely. That would be the dream.
Well, in this draft, we don't do trades. Maybe next year it'll change, but you heard it here from Ryan Hill. If they don't move, Marvin Harrison is the play. That's what we're rooting for. That's what we think it can happen. Any final thoughts for us, Ryan, before I let you go when we go out to Arizona for the 4th pick?
It's Marvin Harrison Jr. or trade. That's all it can be, like you just said, buddy. That's all I'm rooting for when it comes to Thursday night.
It's Vontae Mack, no matter what.
Absolutely.
Thanks again to Ryan picking Marvin Harrison 3. You heard him. He doesn't think that they're actually going to do this. He thinks they're going to try to trade down. But if they stayed there, getting a generational wide receiver in there, I kind of like what Ryan's doing. Try to maybe go get Michael Penix later in the 1st round. Try to get a better system there in New England. Like the pick. But that leads us now, David, into Arizona, where the Arizona Cardinals are 4th. And without trades in this mock draft, I'm kind of going the similar route Ryan Hill did. Because with the 4th pick in the LOD mock draft, the Arizona Cardinals are going to take Rome Odunze. And I actually think this is a fantastic fit. It's just they probably prefer Marvin Harrison in the draft if they had to go one or the other. What did you think about this pick? 2 wide receivers, top 4. That's kind of crazy.
See, this is where like our mock draft is really hard because I don't hate the pick. I actually think the wide receiver, like I think they do take a wide receiver, and it's just whoever's the best between Marvin Harrison and Rome Odunze left at that pick if they don't trade out of it, right? So I like the pick a lot. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I think that one thing I would point out, because you're going to hear me mention this 19 times during this process, since we don't do trades, and that's becoming such a prevalent part of the 1st round in the NFL draft, it makes it hard to predict this, where I've seen a lot of people out there kind of throw the idea around that Arizona moves out of 4 and then goes back up to 5 with the Chargers to take the 1st wide receiver in the draft. But it feels like to me, Arizona is locked and loaded at wide receiver. I was wrong about Kyler Murray. I thought they'd move on. Clearly, they're not planning to. And if you're going to ride with them, then you better load him up with weapons. So I think no matter what, you're going to get a wide receiver here at 4. But now I'm going to throw it to one of our really good buddies here, David. Brian Craighead is picking for the LA Chargers at pick number 5. Let's go see what he's doing there. And now with our 5th pick in the draft, picking for the Los Angeles Chargers, we welcome on one of David and my best friends. It's Brian Craighead. Brian, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Ready to make the 4th overall pick? I don't even know what pick they have. The 5th pick for the Chargers.
The 5th. Who cares, though? Because I see underneath there, people at home, he's got the Cavaliers shirt on. He's doing this right before half, so I couldn't thank him enough for this.
Game 2's on. Cavs are letting them know right now, but I'm happy to jump on and help out here.
Yeah, just a second win of 15 more in this playoffs for the Cavs. Obviously going to get it done. Yeah. But Brian, let's jump right to it. So we had a little fun discussion with ourselves here because this is not how we saw the board going through 4 picks.
Not at all. I mean, you can already tell how much research I did on this. I don't even know what pick it is. But I was like, all right, cool. When the board was going around, I was like, I'll take the Chargers. Easy. Maserati Marvin Harrison. That's a layup. Go ahead and just take him because obviously everybody else is going to be taking quarterbacks and stuff. He'll be there for the Chargers replacing Keenan Allen. Turns out there's apparently a lot of Buckeyes fans in the chat, so that didn't exactly go the way I planned. I really wanted to take like J.J. McCarthy just out of protest, but I love and respect you guys too much to do something like that.
That's a hardball move. You already know. Yeah, that's a hardball move.
You know he's on the board. You know Blake Corum's on the board. I'm just saying, there's a non-zero chance.
He's definitely got that. Like, you remember the meme with like the glasses where he sees Justin Herbert and he like does the wipe off and he sees JJ McCarthy all of a sudden. He's like, I can trade Herbert. That's like for nothing.
Yeah, if McCarthy's there, so he might trade up to get him. Who knows? He might trade Herbert with what the rate they're going at.
That's a great point. So I'm expecting this is probably Blake Corum at 5 here, then, right?
No, like I said, I respect you. I love and respect you guys too much to do that. Realistically, here, like if the board does fall this way, they probably end up trading down, maybe to the Vikings or some other team that wants to come up and grab quarterback, right? So, if this is the way it goes, I can certainly see them doing that. So my pick probably resembles what they would ultimately end up doing, and that's taking a tackle. We're talking about Harbaugh here. You know they love their offensive linemen. So I ended up going with Joe Alt, the tackle from Notre Dame.
Well, and this is well, I mean, it's one of the best tackle classes we've ever seen, and Joe Alt is kind of the unanimous number one tackle on the board. I hate bringing it up because it is such a sacred player for Brown circles, but it's got a Joe Thomas kind of feel to it where it's just, this guy's going to be good. It's just a matter of how special he is. So if you were taking a tackle, there was no question. It was Joe Alt here, right?
That's the guy. I'm a Notre Dame fan as well, so it was easy. I don't even care if all that was true about another player. I'm taking Joe Alt here. So
that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. So it did end up being a layup for me in the end, even if it didn't quite go the way we thought it would.
It really just goes to show, too, with how much offensive talent there is in this class, that even if the Chargers have a board fall like this, where it might be worst case scenario for them, they're still going to get a very, very special player if they are willing to hang on to the fifth spot. Did you ever consider, I know that we got to see Rome Odunze go right before. Was there ever a chance that you were going to take Malik Neighbors, or if Rome fell, you would have touched him?
I mean, I think they definitely want a wide receiver here, probably. That would be their first choice again, Marvin Harrison. If he makes it to them. I just thought, you know what, it's Harbaugh. He's gonna take a lineman over a wide receiver, just because that's just the way it is. So I thought about it a little bit, but given the way I have my eyes set on one wide receiver. So once I got burned, I was like, all right, no more for me.
It just kills me. The Chargers, they feel way too good to have the fifth pick, and it scares me. Whether it be Marvarati Marv or if it is Joe Alt, this is a disaster for me. But Brian, 2 straight years that we've had you on, it's been a pleasure. We're definitely going to have you back on one of these days. Believe it or not, the Browns might have a first-round pick, and we might have to get you on for that.
I don't know if I believe you.
It might not happen. It might not happen. You might be the new Les Snead in the Rams. You might just never take first-rounders, but if that happens,
keep trading them for quarterbacks. It's definitely been working out.
Oh yeah, free to Sean.
Needs first-round picks anyway. Yeah, right.
Well, dude, Brian, you're the man. We thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure we will have you back next year, whether it's with the Browns, whether it's with someone else. We'll definitely have you back on. So thank you so much. And we're going to be throwing it.
The pleasure is all mine.
No. The pleasure is all mine, Brian, as always. But now we're going to throw it back to us and with David and I for the 6th pick in the New York Giants, the G-Men. Thank you again to our friend Brian Craighead. Joe Alt, we have the first tackle of an outstanding tackle class going pick 5. That feels like a very Jim Harbaugh pick, which leads us now into pick number 6. And I'm picking this one for the New York Giants. And I got to tell you, David, there's no way this one's going to happen because it means that this guy has fallen to pick 6. But with the 6th pick of the LOD mock draft, the New York Giants are going to take Daniel Jones' successor, Drake May, quarterback, UNC. No way he's there at pick 6, right? There's no way he's still there.
I don't know, man. Who's he going to above the Giants? Like, the Chargers have their quarterback. We just talked about Arizona. I mean, maybe New England takes him, but I don't know. You're probably right. He probably isn't there, but I laugh at this pick for the Giants that you just made because to me it's just another 5-year setback for the franchise. And I'm going to be critical of Drake May here, but of the top 5 prospects in the draft, he's got the worst QBR in pocket of any of them. And then he's got the second worst QBR under pressure, other than he's only behind Caleb Williams, who I also think is going to be maybe not a true bust, but the definition of a bust, because everyone's been hyping him up for a year and a half, and I don't think he's going to be that good. But I'll stop being negative. Wally, you tell me why that pick makes sense.
See, I have a lot of reservations about Drake May's game too. He misses a lot of layups. It's almost like a Josh Allen feeling prospect to me coming out, where there is crazy high upside. He's physically the part. He is everything you want in a franchise quarterback. He's athletic. He's strong. Just an arm that jumps out at you when you watch the film. But the problem is those missed layups that you get all the time. You're betting that you can do the Josh Allen, where you can just tame him and let him play in your system. And here's the thing, 3 through 5, New England, Arizona, the Chargers, there's a real world chance none of those teams pick in those slots. And there's a lot of teams hungry for quarterbacks. Drake May's gonna go. Someone's gonna fall in love with the upside. And if I'm the Giants, I mean, I know you just lost Daniel. Well, I mean, you have Daniel Jones, but let's be real. He ain't it. Drake May can get a fan base excited again. And I think the Giants would run to the podium if he was still there at 6. But we will now throw it to my Uncle Scott for the Tennessee Titans pick. Last year, he wanted, I want to say, they got obviously Peter Skoronski, but I want to say that he wanted Hendon Hooker, instead got his rival Kentucky Wildcats quarterback. Let's see what they do for him if they give him a little help on that offensive line. And now for the Tennessee Titans pick at pick number 7, we welcome on a very special guest, one of my favorite people on earth, my Uncle Scott Faulkner. You see that jersey behind him? He's been a diehard Tennessee fan since the Oilers days. So, Uncle Scott, how are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing all right. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing a lot better now that I'm looking at that gorgeous jersey over your shoulder.
Oh, isn't it awesome?
There's seriously
picture next to it.
They might be, if I, you eliminate your own team because I'm just a loser and obsessed with the Raiders. You throw them out, they might be my favorite jerseys in sports history. The baby blue.
Blues.
Oh, and they're just hot, man. They're hot.
Yeah. And one of the best. One of the best running backs ever.
That era, too.
Runner. Oh, he was a hard hitter, man. He 36-inch thighs. The guy was a monster.
It was fun. In that era of football, you had some monster running backs. We don't get those anymore. Derrick Henry's kind of it.
So, 74 career touchdowns, or 75 career touchdowns, 74 rushing, 1 passing, no receiving touchdowns in his career. Little trivia bit for you there.
That's wild to think that he never had a receiving touchdown at any point in his career. See, it's funny, former Raider Josh Jacobs right now. I just had my mind blown a few weeks ago by one of our, I think it was one of the people that our host on the show brought it up, that Josh Jacobs has never had a receiving touchdown, and he has 5 receptions a game. It's absurd when sometimes you find these little trivia nuggets. So I appreciate you throwing that in there for us.
I'll take care of you, buddy.
I know you always have. But Uncle Scott, pick number 7, what are we going to do here? I feel like we're expecting some offensive line help for Will Levis.
Well, last year I had the right position, wrong player.
Right church, wrong pew.
Line. And it's gonna be line again this year. A little trivia for you: 7th pick of the draft. The Titans organization has not had the 7th pick since 1962, the days of the Houston Oilers and the AFL. They picked Ray Jacobs in 1962. He was a defensive lineman. He was picked number 7 by the Oilers. In the 17th round of the NFL draft, the Cowboys picked him. Didn't play for either organization, ended up playing for Denver for 4 years, Oakland, I think, for a couple, and the Boston Patriots. Never really got off the ground. We're going to do better this year with our 7th pick, though. This year,
I was wondering where you were going with that. Let's hear this pick.
This year's 7th pick, we're going to do an offensive tackle. We're going to do J.C. Latham out of Alabama. He's pro-ready, and I think he's going to be a great pick for us.
You just said what I was about to say. Of all the tackles in this draft, maybe the guy that can step in on day one and be ready to protect Will Levis. Got to ask, though, do you expect, if this move happens, is he staying at right tackle, or do you think they're going to try to move him to the left side?
I think he's going to go to the left side. I think that's where they're going to need the help the most. Going into this, coming up to this pick, Joe Alt, J.C. Latham, those were, I was on the fence. Alt falls off the board 2 picks ahead of me. May have been a blessing for us. My concerns with Alt, he's 6'9". So he's a big guy. I'm not exactly sure how tall Levis is, but throwing over your blind side is going to be interesting. There's going to be helmets getting hit with footballs, I think, if they picked Alt. Also, Alt has a higher center of gravity from everything I'm hearing and tends to lean into his stance. So they think a stutter step could cause problems for Alt in the game with the defensive end going right by him. Latham, 6'6". He's got more balance. He's got a great arm span, big hands, knows how to use them, and will ride the blockers right past the quarterback. I think he's a good fit for him. He's probably overall the best offensive lineman in the draft this year.
Well, in this offensive line class, this offensive line class is one of the best ones we've seen in a long time. Is it one of those things where if you take any of these like top 3 or 4 tackles, who would be tackle number 1 in most years, will you be smiling on draft day, or is it I need to have Alt or J.C. Latham here?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with any of them. I think it's good. I think that the Titans will either end up with one of the two. It depends if Alt falls off the board before Latham gets there, as he did in our draft here, or if Alt's still there and they go his way. The high center of gravity, the issues they've got there, that can all be corrected at camp. There's some highs and lows with each one of the players. Alt, has a family and a heritage in the NFL. That could be a plus because Dad could have prepared him for the pros. Listen to your coaches, do what you said. I'll teach you the basics. Could be a negative too because Dad could be telling him, "Want you to do it this way," and the coaches say, "Do it the other way." Who do you listen to? Do you listen to Dad or do you listen to coaches? Latham comes in. The biggest problem he's got is he started at a guard on the right side. Then he moved over to right tackle. I don't know if he's got the ability to switch over to left tackle. It's a big change from one side to the other. And it's putting a lot of trust into a guy to protect the blind side when he's never played that position.
Here's the spin zone. The thing is, though, is that even if it doesn't work, you try to move him to the left side, and that doesn't work out the way you want, put him back to right, and he's going to be a good pro there. So it's like you can take that chance and still have a good backup plan if it doesn't work out.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. I like the fact that we're going to be addressing the line again. That's everything I'm reading is it's a line pick again. I think that we've got the foundation in place. We just got to protect our quarterback right now. We are getting away from a running team. Earl Campbell back here. You see the picture. Eddie George, Derrick Henry. Traditionally, we've been a running team. Every once in a while you sprinkle a warm moon in there and watch us throw the ball, and we have some fun. So this is Will Levis's chance to show, do I have what it takes to be the leader here and to lead this group into the next level in the next tier and change this to a passing team.
You and I were talking on the phone this last month, just trying to brainstorm about our teams, looking at this next year. And I think that you and I have a very good expectation for the Titans, that this year is less about winning anything special. This year is about establishing whether or not Will Levis can be the guy going forward. And if you bring in a guy, any of these offensive tackles, really, you should at least be putting him in a much better position to succeed than he was last year. So,
absolutely. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll take an 11-6 season or a 12-5 season.
You'll take
absolutely.
It. Sure.
But Levis has shown some flashes of brilliance, and he's shown some rookie plays too. And I'm anxious to see what he can do with a line protecting him, with a receiving core that's got some experience and willing to make the plays, and a team and a coach. I was really torn about Vrabel because I really liked Mike. I thought he was a fantastic head coach. Thought he would actually end up somewhere else head coaching this year. But I can see with transitioning from a running team to a passing team, the thought process, maybe he's not the head coach to do that. And bringing in the new head coach. I think he comes from the Cincinnati franchise. They've got a history of passing. So he's going to bring some of that mentality over with them, and I think he's going to help them out.
And the last thing I'll mention here before I'm out of your hair, but Bill Callahan, you bring in one of the best offensive line coaches in NFL history, and then likely you're going to bring in a very good tackle, and you're going to pair him up potentially next to Peter Skoronski after last year. It's an exciting time to be into that Tennessee offensive line right now.
It is. I mean, I think that I'm excited just to see what's going to happen. I'm looking forward to the draft, but I'm looking forward to the first game of the season just so that we can start counting these things and seeing where we're at. They've made some big moves, some bold moves, and I'm not disappointed with them.
Well, Uncle Scott, I mean so much that you came on yet again. I always love having you. We don't have too many Titans fans on this, so to have you, it's extra special. So thank you so much. Love the pick, by the way. But now we're going to be transitioning to the Atlanta Falcons at pick 8 with Evan Dessecker. So we'll throw it on over there now. Thanks again, Uncle Scott.
Thanks, Wally. Appreciate you, buddy.
If you are a listener of ours, you know our next guest. The 8th pick is for the Atlanta Falcons, which means we could only have one man on. Evan Dessecker, back once again. Last year, missed on Peter Skoronski, but it wasn't your fault. He was gone before he got to you. What are we doing this year at pick number 8?
Well, first off, I want to say honor to be on the show. Love LOD. If you aren't rocking it, if this is your first episode, go back, start listening right now. But with the 8th pick in the LOD NFL mock draft, the Atlanta Falcons will be selecting Dallas Turner, linebacker, edge rusher, Alabama, unfortunately. But that is the pick. I have a few thoughts, but where do you want me to start? So much to talk about.
Yeah, and I think the first thing that jumps out to me is that this is our first defensive player actually off the board in this 2024 mock draft right now. Falcons get the best player defensively available. Was that always the thought? Team need. What was, I guess, across your mind going into this?
Well, it's, a couple things there. It's a great question. Obviously, a top 10 pick. This is the 4th top 10 pick in a row. You don't want to miss on too many of those. The last 3 playmakers, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan, we got some toys. So the thoughts were we need some edge rushers and we need some big boys. And there's a lot of O-line in this draft, as I think we saw go ahead of us in this mock, and thus wasn't able to take a guy maybe to back up Jake Matthews in the future. But the Falcons, I can't stress enough. I know I've told Wally 80 times he's sick. I'm texting him at 3, 4 a.m., just having nightmares about the Falcons' pass rush. It's a problem. Major, major problem. So going to throw some stats out, just some fun stats, just to let the world know how bad we are at pass rush. While I know
Buckle up, folks. This is really hard to listen to.
Yeah, I got to get ready. It's tough for me to say it, but since 1999, that's 25 years. It's 25 years. There have been 10 instances of double-digit sacks in a season by a Falcons player. Now, 4 of those were Jonathan Abraham. 3 of them were Patrick Kearney. We had a few other ones that were not notable. The last double-digit sack member of the Falcons, 2016, Vic Beasley. He was weak. I don't know what the cursing situation here is in the show, but he was a weak guy. We don't like him very much. But 2012 was the other time we had double digits. John Abraham. I mean, John Abraham was 4 out of the 10 times. We need a pass rusher. Raheem Morris is a defensive backs coach. Could see him shoring up the other side of the corner across from A.J. Terrell since he's a DB guy. But I pray that we finally hit on the pass rusher and go defense instead of playmaker.
I mean, if we're talking about John Abraham in the year of our Lord 2024, we have a problem. and you've been bringing this up now for the years that we've been having you on the show. We need to get a pass rush in Atlanta. And here's the thing. You got to be fired up with Kirk Cousins coming in with all those toys you talked about. That defense, if you get a pass rusher, who's to say that this Atlanta Falcons team can't be playing on Championship Sunday next year?
It's funny you should say. I mean, I'm not going to place any future bets on them, but, it's time that we see if these toys we got the past 3 years, and, I don't mean them like we're going to cast them aside, but Kyle Pitts, Drake London, time for you to see some targets, time to see if you're the real deal. Are we paying you? Bijan, we know that, you're good. Hopefully we'll get that franchise tag, but Kirk Cousins coming in kind of gets that offense. Like it's either good or maybe we move on from those guys, but you got to start that core defense. We could be in the playoffs next year. I'm not going to, jump ahead, but I'm hoping.
It's got to be NFC South or bust, right? That's what it feels like.
It felt that way last year too, even with Desmond Ridder, who I thought we all knew can't throw the ball, but we still love him. He's an Ohio guy, but
Ohio guy is right.
South and bust. I mean, hey, the Saints are always a problem for us, but it's really, if we shoot ourselves in the foot, we won't make it. But we should be winning the NFC South with 8 wins or something like that.
So we have Dallas Turner going 8 here. Evan Dessecker, any last words for us before we throw us to Chicago with Adam Alfonso in pick number 9? So any final words here for us or the Falcons? Anything you got at all, Evan?
I mean, put me on the spot. I was thinking based on how the mock fell, obviously maybe best player on the board might be Malik Neighbors right now. And it just kind of, or a quarterback. If the Falcons take a quarterback or a receiver, I think I'll be burning all of this stuff you see back here. There, maybe send a few texts to see how I'm doing, because there might be some, some flames going up in the backyard. So,
well,
no
hopefully
quarterback.
we have good flames. I was going to say, tomorrow we're meeting together for Stephen Weed's bachelor party. It's actually happening now. Wedding day. It's tomorrow. This is it. By the time you've listened to this, Stephen's already married. It's happened. But Evan, we're going to see each other there. We're going to have a lot to talk about. We're wishing you luck. I think we all are. We started so anti-Falcons on this show 4 years ago. And I think just through you, we've slowly been acclimating ourselves. And I've got Falcon fever. I'm ready for the Dirty Birds, baby.
I'm saying suits and ties yelling out, pay the guys.
Come on.
Hey, baby. Let's get it.
It's what we always say, especially because it's Dion. You're a Falcons guy. Look at you right now. Look on YouTube TV. This guy is great. Look good. Feel good. Pay good. Pick good. Let's hope that you got it here, man. You're the man, Evan. We appreciate it.
Oh, you're the man. Appreciate you.
Unfortunately, here for the 9th pick, the Chicago Bears' 2nd pick, we originally had Adam Alfonso coming on the show, but he has some fun personal news going on. His family's going overseas right now to check out some potential homes for them for the next couple of years. So we understand that they had to bail at the last minute. So Adam, you're the man. Bear down, bear weather. I'm going to try my best to relay what you were telling me the other night at the wedding. So with the 9th pick of the 2024 LOD mock draft, the Chicago Bears are taking Byron Murphy, defensive tackle, Texas. And I love this pick. I talked to both him and Ross, who took Caleb Williams earlier in this draft. Everybody is talking about this Bears team taking an elite receiver here. And Malik Neighbors was on the board. I understand the pool. I understand the reasoning for it. But like those guys were telling me, you also have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Wide receiver doesn't feel like as pressing of a need. You can get that in the 2nd or 3rd round. It's a deep wide receiver class. And Byron Murphy is without a doubt the only tier 1 defensive tackle on the board this year. And if you can bring him in, you can still take your wide receiver in round 2. So I actually really like this pick. Another one they talked about, maybe trading down, maybe going after Johnny Newton from Illinois that we saw or will see someone here on the pod selecting for a team later in the 1st round. But I love that pick. I had to give a little credit there, a little pop for Adam. We love you. Good luck to you out there. And we hope to hopefully have you back on here before too long. But now we're going to send it over to Frank for pick number 10 in the New York Jets. And now we welcome on a very special guest with our 10th pick. We finally have a New York Jet Hardo in here to do his business. We have Frank. Frank, you got to tell me your last name. We're talking about pronouncing your pick's last name. Can you drop yours for me?
It's Capaci. So
Frank Capaci.
Nice little Italian-American. Yep.
You're damn right it's a nice little Italian-American name. He's from Jersey originally. He's a Buckeye like me now, though. So I have to ask you, with the 10th pick here, Frank, what are your New York Jets doing today?
I think we played a little safe. I think we go for the Penn State tackle, Fashanu, and just try to keep Aaron Rodgers on the field because that's the most important thing.
We have about 20 pickers this year, Frank. Yeah. Yours is the only pick that when I got, I audibly cursed you out. This is my favorite player for the Raiders in this draft, and it feels like a really good fit for your Jets, too. What was it about Olu Fashanu that said he's the right man to protect Aaron Rodgers?
So he seems a little bit more raw from what I've been reading than maybe the Oregon State tackle or, Alt from Notre Dame. But one, I don't think Alt will be available at that pick as he was in this draft. Mm-hmm. But having, two 30-plus-year-old tackles already, that gives Fashanu a chance to at least, spend the first couple games on the bench, and then whenever one of those two people go down with an injury, like they will, then he could kind of step in and have at least a little bit more time to get acclimated to Rodgers' system, the way he throws, all that stuff. Because, Rodgers is a very smart quarterback. He's been calling a lot of changes at the line of scrimmage. So it's probably going to be good to give this guy some chance to watch from the sideline first before tossing him right in the fire.
I would say that most people are assuming that this is kind of an all-in year for the Jets. And I have to ask, because of that all-in nature, there's a couple really big names on the board in Malik Neighbors and Brock Bowers. Why did you decide that offensive tackle was the play here?
So I'll address this first in classic Jets fashion. I was not paying attention and just assumed Neighbors was off the board. I didn't even notice that. I didn't even look. I'm like, okay. So that's the reason why I didn't pick him, to be honest. Like, if I noticed, he would be, playing for the Jets. But Brock Bowers...
I got to cut you off real quick before we get back to Neighbors. No, just because you and I were both at Steven's wedding on Saturday. And when you told me this story, it was great time, by the way. But this is, it is so Jets and so Raiders that I fell in love with this guy. And you took him thinking another guy was off the board, where then I spiraled and had to do something else. So I appreciate you being our Jets picker. We fit the bill, buddy. We fit it.
The DNA runs deep. And then Bowers, consensusly seems like everybody loves him. And I really like him.
Yeah.
But as I said, that Jets DNA runs deep. So I figured we pick a skill position player. I think we've hit on two in the past, decade with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. Besides that, who have we had that we've actually drafted? Our best wide receivers have been Brandon Marshall, Santonio Holmes. So two veterans that we either traded or picked up. So we're a little bit better at drafting linemen. We got Nick Mangold, DeBrickashaw Ferguson, Morgan Moses was originally a Jet. He's back. He was at least solid. So, I'm gonna take my chances.
It's actually funny that you bring that up, though, Frank, because I have maintained my last 20 years of life, I guess 15. I want, and it'll never happen because women have to have the say in these things. Yeah. When I have a kid, I want to name a kid DeBrickashaw so bad. That's the greatest name of all time.
That's an offensive lineman name. You're not going to pass it.
And I look at me.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
I'm ready to get you the kickback drop. I'm ready for it. So
right there, hands right in the
chest. We're ready to do it.
Hey, all it takes is just maybe one night you just sneak it. She's feeling a little rough that day. Boom, sneak it right on there.
See, now you know what I'm talking about. We got an angle for the DeBrickashaw name. I needed one.
Oh, I'm in.
But I have one more question I got to ask you here, and it's obviously if you go offensive tackle here, this feels like a at least division or bust year. Like I know Roger says he's going to be around a few. What is your expectation? If we're taking a tackle, whether it's any of these guys, what is a fair and reasonable expectations for the Jets next year?
So that's a tough one. So I think, honestly, I would like to see a deep playoff run. I do have hopefully a little bit of faith Roger stays at least one more year. As I was talking about it with Steve last year when he was asking me about what I thought the Jets' chances. I always thought it was going to be year 2 was going to be our real chance to push for a Super Bowl. That Garrett Wilson was going to need to play with Rodgers and learn and all that stuff because I know Rodgers is very particular. What was it? Play 5, play 4.
Yeah.
It essentially feels like this isn't really year 2. This is year 1. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. They need to make the playoffs, and they need to win at least one game for me to be.
I think that's a fair expectation, though.
About the season. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're the longest drought, I think, in at least football.
When the Browns won a couple of years ago, I think they sewered you, them and the Lions, back to back, kind of threw you under the bus.
So I think we're definitely the longest in football. It honestly might be like almost all American sports that we have the longest playoff drought. Because was it 2010?
It was Mark Sanchez year. I know that. I just can't place the exact year.
It was
the Bart Scott can't wait.
Yep. So I think it was either like the 09-010 season or the 10-11 season. So we're over a decade. Is the tough part.
Well, we're due.
Yeah.
We got Aaron Rodgers in the building there for you, buddy. I feel good. Now you get a bonus question. I didn't exactly tell you I was going to ask, but it's happened in the last hour. Zach Wilson's on the move.
Oh.
But, is it just a clean slate, see you later, good luck thing? Did you want more? Yeah. Did you want him around? What was it like?
So, the group mess, I've got a couple of Denver buddies, so they've been hitting me up with the questions. I'm like, honestly, I think it's fine for Denver. I mean, what was it? It was we traded a 7th round pick and Zach Wilson for a 6th round pick. So they're really not giving up anything. Sean Payton's shown he's a pretty good quarterbacks coach, minus Russell Wilson, but that's because he hated him.
Good call.
I think, I partially think maybe Denver still goes quarterback, and maybe Zach Wilson just starts like their first 4 games or something like that. See if Sean Payton can unlock something in him, but with Jets-wise, there's no ill will towards him. He kind of came relatively out of nowhere, just had an amazing pro day, and of course the Jets just fell for it. I don't have any ill will. He sucked. The Jets sucked. It was both their faults. So,
I think that's a very rational. I was going to say that's a rational approach. I really appreciate that, Frank. But, dude, this is the first of hopefully many times we have you on for this mock draft. You are going to become a resident New York Jets fan. So you got to stay on retainer here for us.
Oh, and anytime you guys need me.
Dude, Frank, you're the man. Thank you so much. And with that, we're going to have to transition now to pick 11 with Tyler Frejofsky and the Minnesota Vikings. And now with the 11th pick, we welcome on a very special guest. If you guys have been listening to the show, you know this man because he goes to the draft with me every single year. He's one of my best friends, Tyler Frejofsky. He's a diehard Browns fan, but today he's playing the part of Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, which makes a lot of sense being a big Andrew Berry fan. Tyler, are you ready to be picking for the Minnesota Vikings today?
Yes, I am.
All right, well then here it goes. We know they're probably not picking at 11 on real draft day. They want to go up. They seem to want a quarterback. There's one out there at 11. Is that where we're going?
Yeah, this pick here, this is going to be one of those scenarios where we stand there for like 30 minutes because there's going to be a commercial break, and then the Vikings are going to take up until about 10 seconds left on the clock when it's an obvious pick in this scenario that it would be J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Michigan.
So at this point, even if they falls to 11, there's no chance in hell that the Vikings aren't going quarterback in round 1, right?
No, absolutely not.
Sam Darnold? Like, you can't roll into a season with Sam Darnold. I know you're like me. You're a diehard Buckeye. We got to watch a lot of J.J. McCarthy. Are you buying in to J.J., or is this just it made sense, this is where he's got to go?
Here, I think it makes sense he's got to go. I will say I'm starting to buy in, mainly because I don't trust any of the other quarterbacks, so why not J.J. McCarthy?
We were on the phone right before doing this today, and we were talking about it. We had been hearing for months, if not years, that this was almost like the Andrew Luck generational class that we were getting. And now we are a week away, and it feels like you're like me. I kind of just see a lot of quarterbacks that don't really get my heart fluttering too much.
Well, and I'll be the one with the hot take on the pod here today, because I'm probably the only one. I ain't a huge Caleb Williams fan, so I'm not a fan of any of these quarterbacks, not even the one that everybody likes at the top. So, they got to take one though. So they're picking here for need, and I know that that's not Quesi's motto here coming from the Andrew Berry tree, but they are definitely picking for need. They're taking one.
Well, and in this scenario, they will have the 23rd pick as well, so we will be coming back to Tyler here in a little bit to hear that 23rd pick, see if they're going need or best player available as well there. Tyler, we appreciate you coming on. We'll be talking to you here before too long.
Sounds good. Happy draft day.
Thanks again to my buddy Tyler Frejofsky making the picks for the Minnesota Vikings. J.J. McCarthy off the board at 11. Fell a lot farther than we think, but somebody else fell pretty far, David, and I'm going to tell you that they are off the board here at pick 12 because the rival to the Las Vegas Raiders, the Denver Broncos, with the 12th pick in the 2024 mock draft, are selecting Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, with perhaps the highest upside of any wide receiver in this class. What do you think? They have to, if they're there, does that not scream Sean Payton to you?
It does. And I'll tell you what, though, hot take, I actually think Neighbors is the second best prospect in the draft behind Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, I don't even have, quarterbacks aren't in my top two. I think those two are 1 and 2 in terms of prospects. So seeing him fall this far, I mean, it's an automatic great pick for Denver from you.
Which bums me out too, because obviously they just move off of Jerry Jeudy to your Browns. They finally make that happen. You feel like they have a hole there at wide receiver now. I would have been thrilled if they can take someone here like Brian Thomas Jr. even. You could be happy with that. If Malik Neighbors is there at 12, I would hate my life that Denver found a way to get that guy. He's the kind of guy like a DeAndre Hopkins back in the day with Houston. He can turn like a bad quarterback still into like an 1,200 yard season his rookie year. I think he's going to be an absolute monster. So that would terrify me. I really hope he's not there at 12, David.
I don't blame you. Take us to the next pick.
Which, you know what the next pick is.
Oh, I'm so excited for it.
Because the Las Vegas Raiders are on the clock. And I am a little devastated. I won't lie to you. I want Olu Fashanu, the right tackle, he would be right for us, at Penn State. One of my favorite tackle prospects in a long time. And my buddy Frank, that bastard with that 10th pick in the Jets, takes him there, which I would love for them. Kind of sent me scrambling. I'm not going to lie to you. And it makes me do something that I actually hate doing. I hate drafting cornerbacks in round 1. But for me, I have the Las Vegas Raiders with the 13th pick, selecting Quinyon Mitchell, the cornerback from Toledo. We get a MAC corner in the top 15 picks. You don't get to say that every day, David.
That's got to be, I mean, let's say he goes in the top 20, right? That's still got to be the highest a MAC player has ever gone, right? Am I
for like a
delusional
corner
in
at
that?
least?
No, well, Buffalo, Khalil Mack. Never mind.
Well, and
Khalil
then
Mack
if you're doing just defense, sure, because Big Ben was probably right up there too. I can't remember when the Steelers were drafting, but
wasn't he like
went
12
there.
or something, or was he later in the first round?
I think it was somewhere in that either late 1 through 10 or early teen area. 9 to 13 is my call. But either way,
all right, so
MAC
my
guys
bad.
aren't
But
going every day.
right, it's exciting for the Maction fans out there, but Wally, I actually like the pick a lot, but why Why corner here instead of maybe some other needs of the team?
So I really did think about going with the tackle here. It's just we already have seen, in my opinion, the best few tackles off the board. And I didn't want to really reach for someone that I don't know if they can play tackle at the next level. Like Troy Fatanu is one of my favorite prospects in the draft, but to me, he's a guard. And it's hard for me to justify taking a guard here with how many needs the Raiders have. And when you play in a division with Justin Herbert, with Sean Payton, with Patrick freaking Mahomes, you need to have a good pass defense. And we finally have a little bit of a pass rush beyond Max Crosby, bringing in Christian Wilkins. So I think you add a corner to that, and all of a sudden the Raiders defense can be as formidable as we've seen probably since 2002.
Now, let me ask you this. If Neighbors were on the board still,
I think
is that a surefire? Is that a surefire over Quinion or
there's something, I don't know if it's funny or what, but the idea of imagining Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell throwing to Devontae Adams and Malik Neighbors is just kind of like you've seen that picture before where it's like a $500,000 Bugatti and it's like parked next to a trailer park. That is what you feel like you're doing there, except you have two cars on both sides of the trailer park if you have Malik Neighbors as well. So I don't know.
Fair enough.
I don't know. But I will say, last thing I'll say on this, I adamantly want one of these top tackles. It will never happen. Joe Alt will not be there, but I would love him. And Olu Fashanu, I'm telling you, I am in love with. And he just feels like a Raider to me.
Dude, what if so hear me out. Fashanu is there, right? I think he's going to be there for the Raiders. And I have that feeling because I've seen some weird mock drafts that have Marvin Harrison falling down to the Chargers. And I know that's not what you want to hear. But if Marvin Harrison falls because you got 4 QBs right off the bat, yeah, I mean, the tackles have to fall, right?
That's in my dream. I think you're right. Like the perfect scenario, if you're a Raiders fan, is that all these quarterbacks are going early. And you can even find, because David, I trust Tree. I think that when we wake up next Friday morning, I think that Michael Penix Jr. will be a Raider. If they draft him at 13, I would be devastated. But I would love, maybe love's not the right word, but I would be open to trying Michael Penix experiment if you trade back, kind of like the Lamar Jackson Ravens trade, where you move back into the tail end of the first for that 5th-year option. I can talk myself into anything, though, David. I want to feel again. I just want to feel.
I don't blame you.
So that's my Raiders. Let me know what you think about that one. But we'll now go to the New Orleans Saints, where they take a tackle. I was talking about not wanting this guy. It's just more of a feel thing for me. I don't know if he felt like a Raider, but he certainly felt like a Saint, and they don't have a lot of choices right now. Their tackle situation is a gong show. So with the 14th pick of the mock draft, the New Orleans Saints are taking Talisa Fuaga, the tackle out of Oregon State. Big fella. Big fella.
So I got to ask you why. I know I do it every pick, but why this? Why this over everything else that they need, which is a lot. The Saints need to get younger and cheaper faster.
Because 2 years ago, the Saints drafted one of the worst tackle bust of our generation in Trevor Penning. And you feel bad saying that. It's nothing against the guy personally. It's just he's not an NFL tackle. And the Saints are desperately trying to get out of starting him, and they backed themselves into a corner. They didn't do anything in free agency, and there's no real help. And unless you're willing to take a 2nd or a 3rd round pick and be comfortable starting him at tackle on day one, then I don't know how else you don't take a tackle here. And to me, Fuaga is your best chance, and he's pretty pro-ready. He's not J.C. Latham, but he's pretty pro-ready.
I'd agree with that. I get behind the reasoning. To me, he's a slight project, not a heavy one, but a slight project because he's technically sound. He gets out of his stance pretty smoothly, but we're talking about college, the NFL, and his pass pro still needs work, right? Like it's not NFL ready. He could be, but I think that's a project pick, and I think they could end up getting burned with that again.
This is just a crazy big tackle class, too. So it's not even just that they're really good. He's one of the small guys, and he's 6'6", 334. So you at least know if you're taking one of these first-round tackles, you're getting a guy that looks the part, that in day one walks out there and he's not going to be physically dominated or outmatched by 95% of the edges in the league. So I guess at least if you bring him in, you give whoever Derek Carr down there a shot because that poor bastard was getting killed last year, and it was because of the left tackle position. But we'll go to 15 now, the Indianapolis Colts. They're going defense here as well, something that we didn't get a lot of in the first 10 picks. This is a very offense-heavy draft. Defense, we'll see how that kind of comes off the board because of that. But with the 15th pick of this mock draft, the Indianapolis Colts are selecting Terrion Arnold, the cornerback. And I think here, especially with how that defense looked last year, you desperately need help on the outside as a corner here. And I think that this is, to me, I think they'd be thrilled. I think they'd probably prefer Quinyon Mitchell. It's my cornerback one, so naturally I guess I thought that. But I think that Terrion Arnold, they'd be pretty fired up with here.
I would agree. I think he's there's no safe bet in the NFL draft, but if you were to put a list together of some of the safer bets at each position, Terrion Arnold is a pretty safe bet at cornerback. So I think it's a great pick. I don't think I would change anything about it.
There's something about too. I guess it depends on who you are, but I took Quinyon Mitchell for the Raiders, and he's a MAC corner. Meanwhile, you have Terrion Arnold is an Alabama corner that played in the SEC against SEC talent, and that kind of matters a little bit to me. I kind of like when you have guys that have actually played at that high level. You've seen the Bengals for the last 7-8 years. They've drafted 12 of their first 14 picks from the college football playoff, guys that have played there. And I kind of really like that philosophy, going after guys on big teams that kind of already feel like professional football players.
And I don't even think it's a big team thing, really. I mean, if you look at Alabama's schedule, they're going to have two DBs, I think potentially three, but for sure two come off the board in the first round, right? Those two DBs played against, I think, three of the projected first round receivers, and guys that people are super high on. So just something to think about, like those guys are not just tried and true on big teams, but tried and true against big talent.
It's a good way to put it. I actually like that a lot. But we're going to transition now to our good friend, Zack Leonatti, who is picking for the Seattle Seahawks this year. So we'll throw it on over there now for pick number 16. And now for the 16th pick, we welcome on a very special guest, a recurring guest. Last year, he was our Washington Commanders picker. This year, he is picking for the Seattle Seahawks. He's our John Snyder. Zack Leonatti, how you doing, man?
What is up, Wally? I am great. I'm happy to be here with you.
I'm always thrilled to talk to you, whether it's us doing our nerd talks on the side, whether we're just going to chat and gab, or if we're talking shop. So it's always great to have you on, Zack. And that's going to lead us simply into this. We're at the halfway point of the first round. The Seattle Seahawks got quite a few needs, so I'm interested to see what you do here. What are we doing at pick 16?
With pick 16, we're going out and staying in state, Washington Huskies offensive lineman Troy Fautanu.
I love it. See, and that's a great hometown boy, too. Seattle, the last couple of years, completely revamped that offensive line. Was it always going to be a tackle guard kind of thing, offensive line, or was there other areas you were looking at here for Seattle?
So, looking initially, we could always look for a sexier pick as well, a star wide receiver, which it seems like the first round is going to be full of them. But at this point in the draft, all those top elite guys are going to be off the board. Someone who would go and be under the mentorship of a Tyler Lockett, something like that. So I'm thinking, all right, who's some of the more valuable players on this offense? Got to protect Geno. Got to lead the way for Kenneth Walker III. Go green. So I'm thinking just bolster that offensive line. And championships are one of the trenches. If the Seahawks want to start going deep in the playoffs, this is where they need to start building.
A couple of years ago, this was the worst offensive line group in the entire league. Finally feel like they're turning the corner. If you bring in a guy like Fatanu, all of a sudden you have 3 guys on rookie deals with high upside. Zach, I think that Seattle would love this pick here. I know it's a weak defensive draft, but did defense ever cross your mind here?
No, we're going offense, high octane all the time, flying high, the birds, baby. Come on.
I love that, Zach. I love that. So I guess with the not sexy pick here, if you are a Seattle Seahawks fan, what is kind of the expectation next year? Because it feels like it's the 49ers division. Is this like a soft rebuild team? Is this like a bridge time with Geno? What is the expectation if you're a Seahawks fan?
I think it's a team that can surprise people. I think that, if Geno can have a solid year, they lean on the running game. Kenneth Walker III has already proven that he can be a top tier running back. Keep these guys healthy. You have a good core of veterans there. I think this is a team that could surprise some people. Maybe a wild card team, maybe win a playoff game. If you're a Seahawks fan, don't expect to be hoisting the Lombardi trophy at the end of the year, but I think it's a team that could definitely surprise people in a pretty strong division.
So for the people at home, Zach is a diehard Cleveland Browns fan, like many of our listeners here. I know it's not a first-round pick this year. I just have to kind of ask, you are a Brown, what are you guys wanting to do? What do you want to see that team move up possibly? People are talking late first, or are you just like, hey, let's chill out one more year, maybe get back into the first next year, and we can worry about it then?
No, I think the Browns are very much win now. You have this window where you have so many, legendary Browns players all there at the same time, right? You win all in on Deshaun Watson. However we feel about it, we don't necessarily love it, but if that's your guy, then we got to pull out all the stops and make sure you put the stuff around him to support that offense and support this team, and we just got to go for it.
Zach, I don't have much left for you. I want to leave it up. Do you have anything else you want to bring up about Troy Fautanu here in the Seahawks? Because he's a guy, I feel like in this draft, he'd be a number 1 offensive lineman in many years. He just coincidentally is coming out in the best offensive line draft class maybe in our lifetime.
I agree. So you got a guy who was Pac-12 Offensive Lineman of the Year. But, I think it also works out really well for him because he's going to be kind of reuniting here now with offensive coordinator, with the O-line coach out in Seattle. And I think it would just be something to be a perfect fit for him. And if this is what plays out for Seattle, I would say the Seattle fans got to be really excited, as excited as you can be about a pick in the trenches in the first round. I think that you got to be really happy with this one.
Well, Seahawks fans would be excited, and I tell you what, I'm as excited as I can be to have you back for a second straight year. Hopefully, one of these days, the Browns will have a first-round pick. Maybe we can get you involved there. So, Zach, thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure, and again, I think the Seahawks would be pretty proud of you right here.
Thank you, Wally, and the pleasure is always mine.
One of our best listeners ever, Zach, you're the man, which means we are now going back to us to pick 17 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Zach, you're the best. We appreciate it.
See you, Wally.
We want to thank Zach once again for coming on. Troy Fautanu, I just mentioned he's another guy that probably plays a little bit more inside, but you're getting a stud on day one. The interior offensive line that's going in the first round this year just feel like all safe bets. So I really like that for Seattle, a team that has a couple staples at tackle right now. They're strengthening the interior a little bit. But Jacksonville, David, the 17th pick, they're going wide receiver. You heard me mention this guy not too long ago. We're going with Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver out of LSU. Everybody talks about Malik Neighbors. Brian Thomas Jr. is another freak of nature right now, a guy that looks like he could have a very long and successful career, and he's going to have Trevor Lawrence throwing him the football. I kind of like that.
I love the pick. The only thing that scares me about him is uh, he kind of gives me like, this is going to be a bad comparison, but it's just the first name that comes to my mind, right? Like George Pickens vibes. Like in his first year in the NFL, his route tree needs work. All right, he's a big guy. He can win contested balls. Obviously, he can perform in big moments, but I just think when you make that jump to the NFL, if you don't work on your route running, you're going to lose in the end, or you're never going to reach your full potential. And that's the only thing that scares me about him, is because we've seen a bunch of guys who have all the tools to be, top 5 receiver in the league, but don't really get there, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Because Daniel Jeremiah, I was listening to Move the Six this week. Him and Bucky Brooks were breaking down some of the talent. And Brian Thomas, you got to hear me out because when I start this, it sounds bad. But they used MVS, Marquez Valdez Scantling, as a comp for this guy. But in the terms of play style, they believe he'll be significantly better than MVS. But to your point, route tree needs a lot of work. He is very long. He's very mobile. He's very athletic. He's very smooth. He just needs to do more than what he's been asked to do at LSU. And there's no reason to think that he can't learn and get to that point. Just at this moment right now, I don't know if he's the guy yet. But in a system with Trevor Lawrence, especially now where you expect the Jaguars to marry themselves to him for the foreseeable future, bring in a guy like this that he's actually going to be around for 4 or 5 years. You can't keep doing the Calvin Ridley thing. Bring a guy in, enjoy him a couple of years, say see you later. Bring someone for him to get some chemistry long-term with, and I think Brian Thomas Jr. is a very good wide receiver to do that. But we're now going to throw it over to my old man, Fred Luke, who's picking for the Cincinnati Bengals at pick 18. And now we welcome on a very special guest, somebody that has been a supporter of us since the very beginning, a supporter for me since the very beginning. Very happy and lucky to have my dad on tonight, Fred Luke, to pick for the Cincinnati Bengals at 18. Dad, welcome to the show.
Hooday, Wally. Thanks for having me on the show, and hello to Lost and Down Nation while I'm at it.
I like to throw the nation in there, even though there is only one real nation with the Raiders, but I'll move past. I gotta do the best I can. I know, because you and I are in the same house right now, who you've been sitting on and hoping that would fall to you at your spot. And I'm pretty sure I know where your pick is, but without further ado, let's hear what the Bengals are doing at pick 18.
Well, who we're picking with number 18, quite frankly, we went into this day not even thinking that this would be a possibility until we realized there were 17 other teams in front of us that didn't know what the hell they were doing. So I will tell you right now that we are running to – wait a minute. Just give me a minute here.
People at home that need to get out to YouTube, by the way, see the full – you think I'm a loser Raiders fan. That's right. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
We're racing to the stage with our pick right now. No. There's no way. No way. No, not enough. You had a chance. You should have talked the other 17 teams in front of us to pick – now, I'll tell you what, the pick's in. You're going to hear it right now. Thanks. So, hanging up the draft phone, as you all know, from the early days of the Stripes. But the Georgia Wonder, Mr. Brock Bowers, Wally, is going to be a happy Bengal alongside Joe Burrow and the great Jamar Chase, another SEC grad. And oh, by the way, a college football playoff participant himself. Seems to be a trend with the Bengals these last decade and a half.
Yeah, you're not kidding. So it's funny you bring that up. I was talking with our previous picker last year, Alex Pessell, last night, and we brought up that 12 of the last 14 first or second rounders with the Bengals have played in the college football playoff. So it feels like you know exactly where you're doing, and it's a shock. Like you said, Brock Bowers still on the board at 18. I can't imagine the Bengals wouldn't be running to the podium with that pick if it happens. But I guess just asking you here, if Bowers wasn't on the board, we know that this likely isn't how the actual draft will go. What were you kind of looking at going into this? Is this you're going with a weapon? Is this best available? What are we doing as a Bengals here?
Well, Joe Burrow, we all know he's a franchise quarterback, going to be, hopefully, at the end of the day, one of the best ever. He's just a hell of a lot better when he's standing up. So we need people on his bookends to keep him stood up, and we've seen over the last couple of years he's a magician, but we're trying so hard to kill the poor guy. So obviously offensive tackle is a need. Guards are a need. Center's going to be a need. In fact, anyone on the offensive line that could stand in the way of the defenseman for more than 3 seconds, for crying out loud, is someone that we'd look at and listen to wholeheartedly. The other need, of course, on the other side of the ball is on the defensive line. Losing DJ Reader was a big deal, and we didn't exactly fill that need in the offseason. It was a nice couple of pickups, but we want that inside presence. So it could have been an offensive lineman, but there's a lot of talk, of course, for that kid Byron Murphy to slide to the Bengals potentially. But I've seen mocks where he's going as early as 10. So who knows? That's how I think Bengals fans thinking.
Yeah, ironically, Byron Murphy is the guy that I thought going into this was the name that was most likely to end up at 18 to the Bengals. And you mentioned top 10. Yeah, he made it 9 at ours. So it just goes to show in a draft like this, very unusual. It's so offensive heavy at the top that you're bound to have teams feel the need to reach for a defensive player when you get the 9 or 10. And there's a chance that an offensive guy or defensive guy hasn't come off the board yet. So we'll keep an eye on that. But I have 2 quick things before I let you go that I have to bring up here. One, right over your right shoulder right now, that lamp, the Bengals, interestingly, we're seeing a lot of these alternate helmets come out. The Bengals came out with one of the best ones ever a few years ago with the white Siberian tiger.
I should have brought it with me.
No. You have to talk about that because you're the only person, like Bengals fans excluded, that I know that's like so fired up about the Bengals helmet over your shoulder that's got to be helmet number 3, right? When the Bengals come out with it.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we should be wearing that thing every week, for crying out loud.
You're not going to get a lot of support there.
Look at this thing. It's a legend. When I see that, I think of Ken Anderson, right? I think of Bobby Trumpy. I think Isaac Curtis. I think of the greats.
Ken Riley, baby.
I think of the number 1 draft pick for the Bengals of all time, Bob Johnson, the center. That's who I think of from the University of Tennessee, another SEC grad. That's what I get all fired up with, that beautiful helmet. People are like, oh, there's no pizzazz. That's artistic. That's artistic. It's a heck of a lot better than the orange drab up in Cleveland, for crying out loud.
Well, you're bringing up artistic. The shoulder here, Leaping Tiger Bengal, is one of my favorite logos in sports. And the fact that it's all but disappeared from the Bengals right now. You get the face, but you don't get Leaping Tiger. That's got to come back to. Right now, again, I got to emphasize, if you're not on YouTube, you got to check it out. My dad's outfit, dad's hard helmet, draft, everything around right now. It's pretty hardcore. I love the Bengals stuff out here. Last thing we leave. This is benefit of being blood relation. I have to say, or have to ask, you and my mom, who's also down there, have a very interesting meet story. Can you quickly try to tell us where you met, how you met, and maybe it would make sense why I'm a little screwed loose myself?
Sure. Well, grew up in Cleveland, and you'd be like, well, why weren't you a Browns fan? Well, my older brother, Jerome, was a big Bengals fan because he couldn't stand Art Modell, like a lot of Clevelanders now, in hindsight, realize the guy wasn't the greatest, right? Well, Jerome knew that a long time ago, and whenever Art Modell fired Paul Brown, the biggest egregious mistake in his career, my brother Jerome says, that's it. We're going to be Bengals fans. And I was a squirt, no bigger than your knee. And he took me to Cincinnati and had season tickets. And we drive every game, every home game down to Cleveland and back on the same day. And it was a preseason game when people actually went to them. And my brother and I went there, and lo and behold, the bride-to-be was there with her date. And we were watching the Green Bay Packers, of all teams, lose to us on a great play. And I was so excited, a little bit liquored up, that I smacked her on the back so hard I almost knocked her off the upper deck. But I pulled her back. She looked me in the eyes, and we were hooked ever since. Drinking buddies for 3 years first, though. Then we got hitched, and the rest is history.
Well, the rest is history, but you mentioned that you got hitched. I would be remiss not to mention that. Talk about football love. It didn't work. You can share it. You can share it. I'm not going to steal that from you.
Well, my friends, before the wedding is the proposal. And we got engaged on Super Bowl Sunday after the Bengals lost to the San Francisco 49ers the second time around.
Was that the John Candy game, or was that the other one?
No, that was the John Candy game.
Okay.
That was look in the stands. There's John Candy. That was a game of missed opportunities. No question about it. But thank God she said yes. In all of our sadness, I was happy. So we won. At the end of the day, I won anyways.
See, that's what we tell ourselves anyways, but I'm convinced that we are going to be seeing a Bengals Super Bowl with Joe Burrow in this core. I keep beating that drum on this show, and I'm going to continue to do it. But, Dad, we appreciate you coming on. Love you. This was a lot of fun, and I'm sure we'll be having you back again next year in some capacity to do this again.
Hey, I'd love to be back. I'm honored to be on the show. Thanks for everything that you do and your teammates do to make it a fantastic show. And by the way, this isn't a wacko pick, by the way. All you have to do is go back to 2013 and realize a guy named Tyler Eifert was picked number 1 by the Bengals from the University of Notre Dame. So, hey, stranger things have happened. You have yourself a great night, my friend. And like I said, go Loss of Down Nation.
I love it. Well, with that, we will be sending it over now to pick 19 for the Rams to our boy Tyler Counts. Until then, tight end Robin Hood gets himself another guy. Over to the Rams. With the 19th pick now, we welcome on a very special guest. I met him this past year in my brother's wedding party. He's now a really good friend, a surrogate Raider fan, and a die-hard Los Angeles Rams fan from St. Louis himself. He has the 99 Aaron Donald jersey on. Tyler Counts. How are we doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. It's been a great night. Night before my favorite holiday of the year, 420. So I'm just relaxing, about to have a great weekend. So
you'll be proud too. You fit right on with this show. Stephen Weed, my co-host. It's his wedding tomorrow on 420. It ain't an accident. It's a very special holiday. I'm glad you're celebrating. But without further ado, Ty, we have some fun here. We have your Rams team. We just saw you lose one of the best defensive players of all time. Does this influence you going into the 19th pick? What are we doing at pick 19?
So I have two thoughts, and one is some chatter around different Rams fans I've talked to, people I'm in touch with on pages, and that's that we think this is a hoax. Aaron Donald's not retiring.
He's coming back.
This is all to build up the defense. He says, because he's still on contract. If I'm correct, I think he has at least one more year left on contract. So there is a chance he comes back. He says his drive was gone for the game, but he's still in great physical shape. He is an absolute beast. But if he does come back, I can definitely see them going with a defensive back. But that's all rumors. There's no actual evidence behind that. So I think with pick 19, the Rams would go Latu, correct?
Dude, you drilled it. It sounds beautiful right there. Well, and I were talking with you earlier today. So you were telling me you were very hung up on edge, and you are a Missouri boy. So you were also out there looking at Missouri edge rusher Darius Robinson. So what was it that made you, I guess, decide that Latu, the edge from UCLA, is the guy for the Los Angeles Rams?
Man, he is just more pro ready. He has the hands, he has the foot movement, he has the entire package, and he seems like he's developed it. I know there are a lot of concerns around his medical history. He was medically retired in 2021. The doctor that looked at his injury is the same doctor that worked on Peyton Manning. So, and that doctor cleared him. That doctor told him, you're good to go. Keep playing football. So I really trust that, and that really doesn't bother me any there. But I mean, he's the full package. The only other concern I've really seen that wasn't just like, talk to me was his arm. They say that his arms are not long enough. He has short arms. And honestly, he's 6'5", he's a big boy, and he's got the same arms length as Aaron Donald. So, we put that in there. I'm not going to worry too much. Like there was a lot about Aaron Donald being undersized coming out of the draft when he got drafted. And I really just, ever since then, I just dismiss that. If he's undersized, if he has the drive to play, then that player will be great.
I kind of like that a lot, actually, and we see it more often in the last few years. You saw it with Youseff last year, getting a lot of that Aaron Donald pop himself. Size matters, but if you're close enough and you are willing to put the work in, you find the right system, you can definitely be a great player in the NFL. So was it always defense? Was there no chance offense was going to get anywhere in your head here?
There's a chance, because I'll look at the board again real quick. I don't remember what quarterbacks were taken. There was one quarterback that
you still have Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. out there.
They're not the guys. I think if JJ McCarthy would have dropped, which I can see him 100% dropping that far, I can see them considering taking him and putting him on the bench, letting him get a years of experience behind Matt Stafford, one of the greatest to ever do it, and just kind of seeing the way Matt Stafford plays a game and looks at the field, and, getting in on those morning conversations with Stafford, Kupp, Puka. And I think that could make a great, develop a quarterback. But ultimately, it's between edge and defensive back. The only other guy I looked at that I thought was great at, that wasn't an edge, was probably Kool-Aid McKinstry. And parts of that is because he has an awesome name.
He's very marketable. He's very marketable.
Exactly. But, it's all, you got to replace Aaron Donald, and there's no replacing him, but you got to fill that hole where he was, because we have great years from the rest of our defensive players. Kobe Turner should have won Defensive Player of the Year. I will die on that hill. Or not defensive player, defensive rookie of the year. He had a fantastic rookie year, and he looked absolutely unstoppable from those last 4 games of the season. Absolutely amazing out of Kobe Turner. One of my favorite defensive players right now in football, just coming off his rookie year. That rookie year blew my mind away.
Well, one of the last things I'll leave us with here for this is your first round pick since Jared Goff, if I'm not mistaken. This has got to be almost uncharted water for you fans out there. It's been 8 years. You've got to be more fired up for this draft than ever before. Am I wrong?
Honestly, there's a lot of excitement. I finally have a reason to watch a day one draft, and not just follow along on ESPN on my phone. But also, I'm kind of scared. We traded away. I wouldn't be surprised if they also just trade out of the first round, get some already developed, edge rusher for a nice trade with that first round pick. But, I really don't see him trading it, but there is that worry in me. I'm like, we might
it's Les Snead
another year.
Les Snead. He's going to whip out, I think Around the NFL said it this last week. Could he whip out the fuck them picks for one more year and have it happen again? You can't put it past Les Snead.
You cannot.
But Tyler, thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully the Rams are picking in the first round again, not too far in the future, so we can have you back on.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
You're the man, Tyler, and now we're going to end up throwing it over to pick number 20. We're coming back here to the Steel City, Josh Hoffner and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now for our 20th pick, we welcome on one of my favorite people on earth. He's one of my best friends on the planet, Josh Hoffner of Josh Hoffner Fitness. You see me rep the hats? It's because he's the best in the world. Josh, thank you for finally being on the show. We love you. How are you today?
I'm feeling fantastic. I figured post 200 episodes, I figured I should jump on,
That's perfect. Well, and we need the real Yinzer approach this year for the draft. We finally have a Western PA. We had your brothers on earlier in the year. We finally get you. We get Big Cat. So I have to ask you, with that 20th pick, what are the Steelers doing?
The 20th overall pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to go with Amarius Mims, tackle from Georgia.
So we have actually been seeing this guy a lot popping up in the local news here. Josh, it seems like he's very hopeful that the Pittsburgh Steelers even draft him. And does this not just feel like a textbook Pittsburgh Steelers pick?
It does. And then you have the two Georgia boys, the bookends and the tackles. You can move Broderick back to his left tackle spot. You got the two Georgia boys on the ends. You got George out wide. The whole Georgia connection.
And they're massive bodies, too.
6'8",
not only
6'8", 340.
And not only do you pair him with Broderick Jones, like you said, but you have Darnell in there as well. Darnell Washington. These three, they're basically going to be just these big maulers in the red zone. That's Pittsburgh Steelers football to a T. I just have to ask you, was there ever a question of another position here? Or was it always tackle for you?
Well, the only other one I thought was going JPJ, a second JPJ for the Steelers with Powers Johnson out of Oregon for center. But I feel like what we'll do is we'll fill that spot maybe with Williams from Miami, second half of the year coming off the ACL.
Well, and you guys too, we kind of are used to the Steelers almost going in-house to fix these problems. So we could see them doing something like that in the interior later in the year. Now, defense for you guys. I was curious. We saw you guys go Joey Porter and go corner last year. It still feels like it could have been a need or a place that you could address. Was cornerback ever something that you considered at one here, or again, offense no matter what?
I felt with the tackles, you can have the bookends, like we said before. You can have hopefully 10-plus years on both sides. And then especially bringing in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, who both love to hang on to the ball and run around. I feel like you have to solidify the offensive line for the two of them.
That's a great point. We know those guys like to hold on to the ball. The line hasn't exactly been Pittsburgh Steelers standard of late, so that makes sense.
Right.
I guess I got to ask you, and I'll let you go. What is an appropriate expectation now for whoever it is at quarterback in this Pittsburgh Steelers team?
I feel like we're going to have 9, 10-plus wins. As a Steelers fan, from watching the inept offense that we've been watching for the past few years, bringing Artie Smith in, we're just going to smash the ball, do a lot of play action to hopefully to George, maybe use our tight ends, like they did Delaney Walker back in the day with Freiermuth. But I feel like we'll just competent offense for the Steelers is a win at this point.
Competence is all we're asking for, baby. It's low bar, but we got a high bar. I was just saying, it's low bar there. Pittsburgh Pirates, my guy over here. We going to get a high bar eventually? We've been kind of tortured this last week.
We'll get one. I feel like with the Pirates, we'll be bouncing back. We'll be bounce back. Jared Jones, Paul Skeens, maybe we'll score more than one run a game again.
You never know. Maybe we can't get it. Yeah, a couple runs. We'll take 2 or 3.
Just a few.
Josh, my favorite person in the world. I love you so much. Thank you for coming on.
I love you more.
This won't be the last time. You already know it, but good luck to you 100%. And your Steelers this next week.
All right. Sounds good. Love you lots. And, maybe go Raiders too, I guess.
I could kiss you. And now with the pick 21 and 22, we'll get to that more in a second. For the Miami Dolphins, we welcome on a very special guest. You guys know who he is if you've been a fan of the show. He's been on a handful of times already. Zach Youseff, my good friend. How are we doing tonight?
Pretty good. I'm excited. Thank you for having me back. I got to pick for the Eagles last year, so that was exciting. It ended up being a fun draft too. So, but I'm excited for this year as well. So I'm excited to make some picks.
Well, and we'll get to your Eagles in a second because they do have a pretty predictable track record in the first round that we'll get to. But first, you're helping us out today. You're picking for the Miami Dolphins as well. So without further ado, I want to start with them. Pick 21, Zach. What are we doing?
Yes. So for pick 21, I had the Dolphins selecting Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, who is a guard.
And I was just going to say, big guard too. And this is an offensive line class we haven't seen maybe in our lives. It's loaded at the top, especially at tackle. So to go inside and avoid one of those tackles here, I wanted to figure out what was the reasoning going there.
Truthfully, the Dolphins could probably go in a few different directions, and it's debatable whether they should have even gone offensive line because it feels like they lost about half their defense just in free agency. But why I had them picking offensive line mainly is because I was looking up some stats before this, and they were 31st in pass block win rate last year. They also started the only 16.9% of offensive line snaps of the same combination of guys last year, which just tells you that they dealt with a ton of injuries and the guys they were starting weren't very good. And that leads to Tua throwing the ball a ton and throwing a ball quickly. And as we know, Tua isn't necessarily the best under pressure. I think a guard who can also play kind of seems like he can play anywhere along the offensive line. Feels like that would be pretty helpful for them.
I mean, last year we got to see one of the most freaky rookie running backs that we've seen in a long time in Devin Achane. And then you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle there too. The fact that that offense couldn't get anything going, I think is a testament to how struggled bust that offensive line was. So Jackson Powers Johnson here.
Exactly.
First of all, by the way, love the name. But well, we have to transition now because I want to spend a little bit extra time here on your birds. So at pick 22, you're back once again for the Philadelphia Eagles pick. And I kind of teased it a little while ago, but the Eagles kind of have this very, not hard to figure out blueprint of drafting offense and defensive line in the first round. Is that what you think your boys are going to do yet again this year?
I have a weird feeling, and I think the answer is no. But my brain is telling me that, yes, they're going to do that because that's just the obvious thing. And it's also still a need to, but I don't think they're going to do it this year. So
is that because we won't even say the pick yet, but I got to ask, is it because of how the board fell, or is it just of how much you think they're going to fall in love with this guy you're about to pick?
So I think it's mainly because of how the board fell. I was looking it up, and Howie Roseman, as we know, the Eagles GM, does not like to stay put where he picks. He always likes to move up, down. But as of recent years, he really likes to move up in the draft. And I've noticed whenever he picks in the 20s, it's a terrible draft pick. It's also, I don't think we've picked a good player at all in the 20s. So maybe that doesn't speak well for Nolan Smith, but I think he wants to trade up. And with 2 second-round picks, I think that would be a lot easier in this year's draft. Maybe trade up with someone like the Jets who might want to trade back, or like the Seahawks or someone like that. I think that's mainly how the board came to this, because a lot of offensive linemen, including the Dolphins, pick one right before me. So,
well, I'm going to put a bookmark in that because I do want to get back to what you think they do if they do move up, but without going any further down that road yet, you're not taking a offensive lineman or a defensive lineman. Almost blew it there. What are you taking here at pick 22 for the Philadelphia Eagles?
So I got the Eagles taking Cooper DeJean out of Iowa, who is a corner kind of safety hybrid. I think number one is versatility across like any position. He could play safety a little, which the Eagles also kind of had a need last year, or he can just play corner, which the Eagles also had a need across Darius Slay, who's not a year younger. And as much of a good year James Bradbury had the prior season, he was beat like a drum last year. So I think and the Eagles have done nothing to address the position at all this entire offseason. So I think it's just staring you right in the face. And you also have to think, you take a corner here, you can have him sit behind, or he'll be playing, but he'll be also seeing behind the Eagles' one good corner of the past decade, and Darius Slay, which I think is pretty important as well.
See, and I think that we have to address the obvious elephant in the room too. We're talking about the first white cornerback who's going to be in the league in, 15, 20 years, it seems like? And it's the way that back in the day, people would profile black quarterbacks, and very inaccurately doing so. We've seen it almost the opposite way for Cooper DeJean at corner. People saying, well, he needs to switch to safety. He needs to do this. If you think that, you haven't watched Cooper DeJean. He's one of the most athletic cornerbacks we've seen in a long time. I mean, that feels like a fun little bring-in for an Eagles secondary that we all saw what happened down the stretch last year. So is that why, I guess, Cooper DeJean was like all over your mind? Like last year, end of the year, defense fell apart?
Well, that certainly helps.
With peace and love. I meant that with peace and love.
Hey, no, it's true. And plus the entire meltdown that the entire team had. I mean, to be fair, that did play a part in my mind. I just got to think they have so much money committed to the offense right now, too.
Sure.
So much money to Hurts, now Barkley, Smith with the new contract, A.J. Brown, Goddard, and the whole offensive line who's getting paid now, too. They have a lot of money committed to offense, and the one glaring hole in the team for a team that should be aiming to win now. Corner is just glaring. And frankly, we've seen rookie corners been able to step in and play pretty well. So if another guy can come in and play well, the pass rush gets back online. Defense might play a little bit better under the new defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. So
let's take a detour back to what you were saying right before you made that pick, because we do know Howie Roseman, and there is a very real world scenario that they trade up. And if they trade up, we know it's likely not for cornerback. If they do move up, is there a name? Is there a position that we should be keeping an eye on?
I would say if they traded up, probably it has to be tackle or one of the tackles, because I don't think just because of they could probably use a starter this year at right guard, but also Lane Johnson's probably not going to play much longer.
And it's one of the best tackle classes we've ever seen.
Exactly. And it just makes sense. Like, why not just trade up? And it's also, if you think about it, Lane Johnson, like I said, hasn't really stayed totally healthy in his full career. This guy might play this year at tackle. So, I don't think and you don't want the whole season derailed because of one player missing. If Lane Johnson goes down early, what this whole season might take a tumble. So why not have a guy who's eventually going to take over for him step in? You could convince me on that too.
Well, I have one last question, comment I have for you, just because you and I have for now years been all in on Landon Dickerson, on Cam Jurgens, and we saw with Jason Kelce retiring, you lose a Hall of Fame center. A lot of people have already written off this Philadelphia offensive line. It's like it's going to take a step back. How surprised are people going to be when Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson are monsters on the inside next year?
I mean, Landon Dickerson's already one of the best guards in the league. He's a beast.
We knew that. We knew that going in. I don't know how he felt so far, Zach. Injuries, I know, but damn it.
He hasn't missed any time, seriously, since stepping in the league, which thank God. And it also helps that the Eagles got with their 7th round pick, their mainstay at left tackle, Jordan Mailata, who just signed another contract extension. He's only 26, and he's already a very good offensive tackle too. I think Jurgens is going to actually be pretty solid.
You're damn right.
I think playing last year at guard, and I mean, he was also an athletic center, so maybe he's not going to be Jason Kelce, but I mean, you got a pretty good guy waiting in the wings. So I'm excited to see what they do. They're definitely, if not with pick 1, they're going to address it with pick 2, offensive tackle or guard early, I think.
Well, Zach, I think you've said it all. The Philadelphia Eagles here going Cooper DeJean, going off the board a little bit from Howie. We'll see if that happens. You heard Zach here said they might be moving up, so keep an eye on that too. But Zach, as always, it's been such a pleasure to have you on. We can't wait to have you back making the picks for the Birds again next year. Zach, you're the damn man.
Thanks, Wally. Go Birds.
And we are back now with pick 23, acting the part of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Tyler, we are picking for the Vikings here. We already got your quarterback and J.J. McCarthy. What are we thinking here at pick 23?
Well, thanks for having me on here as a Browns fan. Ironically, this is the Browns pick, so who knows? Maybe in 2030. Maybe in 2030, I'll be able to make a pick here for the Browns.
That's on me, for the record. That's on me. Did not mean to do that when I told you to take the Vikings. Feels like a dick move. But all right, Tyler, back over to you.
That's all right. This one here, we got the quarterback, lost to Neil Hunter in the offseason. Seems like we have to bolster the defensive line, and we're going to go with an edge player here, and we're going to go with Jared Verse, edge, Florida State.
Edge feels like the natural fit here, Tyler. I know that we were floating around a couple names before we got on. Daniil Hunter is out of the building. It had to be edge, right? It feels like the Vikings are one of the more predictable teams on draft day going in a week out.
Yep. And with Daniil Hunter, he's a super freaky, athletic edge player. They're going to get another one here. Brian Flores has to have something to work with on defense there. And you got the quarterback. You've got plenty of weapons. This definitely feels like a defensive pick here.
And it's kind of a weird benefit for the Vikings, too, where in most years of the past, you see a couple edges going in the top 10, where this year they're kind of getting pushed down the board because of how strong this offensive class is. The Vikings don't have to do much at 23, and they're still going to end up with one of the top edges of the entire class. I think this is a home run here. The only thing I'd want to ask you before we leave, was there ever a player that if it got to 23, maybe a position that you're like, you know what, maybe they do hold off on edge and they just kind of fall in love with somebody?
I think maybe if some of the offensive linemen at the very top were to fall, you could see that, try to protect J.J. McCarthy in that scenario. If there was a running back worthy, you could see them trying to take a running back high and get the fifth-round option, almost like a Jahmyr Gibbs pick here, and really try to set J.J. McCarthy up, but that's about it. I don't know why. I thought about Cooper DeJean here, pair him with Harrison Smith, and really have a defensive backfield there.
Yeah, it'd be a unique backfield, that's for sure. They're in Minnesota, but yep. I do think you're on the right track. I mean, we've seen the Vikings are one of the only teams in football where it's an all homegrown offensive line. We know what they love doing with those running backs. Bring one in, keep them, run them into the ground, let him go after a cycle. I think Tyler might be on to something here. Tyler, I will see you in a week. We'll be back in Detroit, as always. But thank you once again. First time in a while we've had you on, so we appreciate you coming on and being Kwesi Adofo-Mensah for us today.
No problem. Go Browns.
Thank you once again to Tyler for coming on. 2 picks from the Minnesota Vikings. I know that was the Browns' original pick, so I'm glad he brought that up. Feel bad actually bringing him on for that, but he had to point that out. I'd call out, hey, you're going to be Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, your boy Andrew Berry's buddy. Then, yeah, I guess a hand up, that's on me, Tyler. But unfortunately here, too, we have a second person that was unable to make their pick. He's actually dying right now. Dakota, we had him on last year. Dallas Cowboy guy. He is going to be selecting at 24 here. Graham Barton, the interior offensive lineman from Duke, a guy that has played and can play all 5 positions on the offensive line, and a guy that Dallas could desperately use. We know that they are a team. It's a very Jerry Jones pick to me. You bring in interior size, someone that they love down there, maybe become a little bit more of the bruiser old school style team we see. I like it. I can get behind that pick in Dallas. But then we will throw it now to Mitch Buhler for the Green Bay Packers in pick number 25. Steven, hope you like this pick. Mitch is good. One of our Uper buddies up there making this pick in your stead. Hopefully we get you to sign off and we don't have to hear more about Fire Goot for the rest of the year. Without further ado, we'll send it to Mitch. And now for the 25th pick for the Green Bay Packers. Steven Weed's not here because of his wedding, so you know I had to call up a buddy from the Great White North. He's a Uper now. Mitch Buhler, our Green Bay Packers picker today. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Happy to be here.
Of course you are, because you are you are an embodiment of Wisconsin. You're kind, you're a knowledgeable beer drinker, and you are a Packer fan. Mitch, look at that. Is that a spotted cow? I couldn't tell.
No, it's an Arna Palmer today.
Oh, we're just Arna Palmer. That's all right. It's a casual Sunday night. Bucks are on. Go Bucks. Hope they win for you.
They're up 22 right now.
Well, of course. I mean, they're coming out of the East, baby. Milwaukee proud. Bucks in 6. So I have to ask you, with the 25th pick here, what are we doing?
With the 25th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select linebacker, Texas A&M, Edgerrin Cooper.
I was kind of fired up when you sent me this earlier because Edgerrin Cooper is one of those really fun prospects in this draft. Some people don't see him coming off the board until day 2. What was it about Edgerrin Cooper that made you say the Packers got to pull the trigger here at 25?
Versatility is something that the Packers are valuing right now, all across the board, offensively, on the offensive line. Multi-tools, multifaceted players are what they're moving towards. I think that's going to translate into their defense too, especially now that they're running a 4-3 defense and losing a recently all-pro inside linebacker in Devondre Campbell. We're replacing him. You can never have too many pass rushers too, and Cooper's a guy who I believe he ranks right up there, if not right at the top of tackles for loss, sacks coming from a linebacker. I think he's pretty good in pass coverage. I think the inside linebacker position was one that the Packers didn't really value all that much until recently, until we saw the benefit of a Devondre Campbell and what he can do for your defense. So I think having a guy in the middle of our defense who can do it all next to a Quay Walker type, I really like what that does for the Packers defense this year.
Now, I have to ask you, pretend like this board doesn't exist. At 25, it's kind of a unique spot. A lot of things can happen for the Packers here. What were the team needs? What were the things that you really were looking at going into this? Because I know we shared a couple other names that have already been off the board you were really interested in.
Mims out of Georgia, the tackle. I could absolutely see the Packers drafting some tackle that nobody's ever heard of. Would that be fun? Not necessarily. Would it work? Probably. Would that be a good thing? I'm all for it. So I could see them definitely going O-line. They draft tackles. They don't draft guards or centers. So some tackle would be, up there among my expectations. I know there's a number of good players in the secondary in this draft. I'm not gonna try to get into naming names outside of the fan favorite Cooper DeJean, who would have been my pick had he been available on the board. And I know the Packers have had a lot of success drafting out of Iowa. Mike Daniels is a good guy. Brian Balaga, Iowa. Micah Hyde, who I would absolutely still love to have in green and gold. I think he may be a free agent, but now I'm just rambling on about the Iowa boys. But Cooper DeJean, someone in the secondary would have been good. Someone on the O-line would have been good. But like I said, I'm getting pretty excited about my Edgerrin Cooper inside linebacker pick. I think that's a fun one.
I think it's a lot of fun too. And the guy's got a nose for football, hyper aggressive. You talked about the tackles for loss and the sacks. The guy plays with his hair on fire, and that's something that the Packers could desperately use. Now, I got to ask one final question before I let you go here. Packers last year were this close from beating the NFC champs. What is the expectation in Green Bay going into next year?
My expectation is improvement. And that's not to say I'm sitting here saying we're going to win the Super Bowl. We have to win the Super Bowl or bust. What I think we're going to do is we're going to grow as a team. Young talent on the wide receiver position. Young talent, obviously, at quarterback that we're super duper pumped about. Jordan Love. I think the Packers will go as far as these young guys will take us. And I think they can take us far. My expectation is that they're better than last year, which places them among the contenders in the National Football League. So I think our window for a Super Bowl is open, and I'm pretty pumped about that.
Yeah, it was a real tough year for a couple of years for your guys' Packers up there. You guys are just this historically down franchise, so we're happy that you guys are finally back to Super Bowl contendership.
I know it was a really tough 3-month rebuild there.
I hate you so much.
Dude, it's all
Mitch,
good.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on today. Steven obviously is our Packer man. He was fired up to hear what you have to say here, so I'm sure we'll be getting a lot of feedback from him. But Mitch, you're the man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go. With that said, we're going to throw it on over to Hayden Ramsey with the 26th pick in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And now for our 26th pick, we welcome on a very special guest. He's coming back, did our pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year, and he's here to do it again. Hayden Ramsey, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing good. I'm glad to be on.
We're always fired up to have you on, and I'm really excited for you to read this pick because this one, unlike a lot of the picks on this mock draft, feels so Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I can't even contain it.
It is.
Well, then, without further ado, Hayden, let's hear this pick.
So, I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I got the text of everybody's picks before me, and I was like, yes, my guy's still there. So, with this pick, I am going defensive end / edge Chop Robinson from Penn State.
And it's just so, you just lost Shaq Barrett, but this is so Tampa Bay to me. It's an edge that falls a lot farther. I know everybody's a little low on this edge class, but you have a freak athlete in Chop Robinson. You're a diehard Buckeye fan like I am, so you've got to watch a lot of him. What is it about him that drew your attention so fast?
Oh, man, I just think the explosiveness, I don't remember exactly. I watched a lot of the Combine, but I'm pretty sure that dude set some sort of record at the Combine for his speed. So, like, that, I mean, that's just a huge thing that I think will translate. So,
and then it's the thing, too, is that I know that people are low on this class. It happens all the time when people are low in position groups. Sometimes you just have to actually trust your eyeballs. And when you watch the tape and you watch Chop Robinson play, you can tell the dude is just a dog. He is a football player. So I love what you're doing here. I guess my other question here for you is, if this doesn't fall this way, was it edge no matter what for you, or did you have some other ideas here for Tampa?
No, man, I had a couple different options in my back pocket, I guess. A.D. Mitchell was one. I thought about him a little bit. And then the other one, offensive line, thought about either Tyler Guyton or Jordan Morgan, both offensive tackles. I mean, that's just, you can't have enough of those big body type dudes. So, like, to me, it came down to really, am I getting an edge or am I getting an offensive lineman type body? So
I've got one last question for you, and I'll let you go tonight. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are kind of the kings of the NFC South as of late. We saw Kirk Cousins come into the division. Is it still like division title or bust next year for the Bucs? Do you think they still have a real good shot to do it?
I do. It's gonna be tight. I think. I just, the Bucs lost a couple guys, through free agency or through trades. Underrated guy that they lost, Carlton Davis.
Great call.
Going to the Lions. Like he was pretty rock solid back there. So, like, replacing him and replacing Barrett, like, those are going to be tough. But still have some core guys back on the offensive side of the ball. Running back, my guy, Rachaad White, looking good. I think he's going to have a good future. So hopefully he continues to build on the last couple of years.
Well, and you know how I am with Baker. This is a very pro Baker Mayfield podcast. Yeah. So we're very much in your camp here, Hayden. We're rooting for your Bucs.
I can't believe that I'm pro. I mean,
I remember you were so adamantly anti-Baker until last year. And it was like a son of a bitch.
He won me over, though. The dude.
He's a competitor.
Is he the best quarterback? No, but the dude competes all day. Like, he puts it all out there for everybody. So,
and you can't convince me that people don't like playing with him. His teammates always seem to love him. Mike Evans wanted to come back because of him.
Right.
Like, that says a lot when you have guys like Hall of Famers. I want to come back and play for Baker Mayfield.
There's a realistic chance that he's not a Buck, which would have been, I mean, this is mind-boggling if he wasn't. But if they didn't re-sign him, like, there was a real chance Mike Evans is somewhere else right now. So,
and I got to give you credit because took a little poke at you there, so I got to turn around and give you big props. You, as long as I've known you, have been pounding the Mike Evans is one of the best wide receivers in the league. And I was always kind of like, I don't know, he's just like a really good wide receiver to me. Talk about being won over the past few years. Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer. What he's done, the consistency is something we really have never seen. So I'm really happy for you. You got him back, and we'll be rooting for you this next year, Hayden. So good luck to you and your Bucks.
Sounds good. Go Bucks.
Absolutely. You're the man, Hayden. With that, we will now throw it back to us for the Arizona pick at number 27. We want to thank Hayden once again for coming on, make that pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Chop Robinson, another Big Ten edge off the board here. We're going to go now transition to number 27, where the Arizona Cardinals, I have going defense again here. 27th pick, they are going cornerback from Clemson, Nate Wiggins. After, I think, a slam dunk wide receiver pick early in this round, I think they can go a couple places here later, but I think cornerback makes the most sense, especially for a team that we saw needs a lot of help on defense.
Why cornerback over, say, D-line? Is it because of just the talent available?
Definitely partially, because the cornerback market in this class, I feel like once you get through the first 2 rounds or so, you really are going to see a massive fall off at the cornerback slot, where it's kind of already starts slow on the defensive line this year. Because outside of Byron Murphy, there's really not a lot of interior guys that I feel like could make an immediate difference. So you might as well take the best player available there, who just happens to be at a position that you desperately need. Right now, you're looking at Garrett Williams, Starling Thomas. I don't even remember some of these names. And then Sean Murphy Bunting, who's actually a good corner. But like the other ones that we're talking about there, it is a gaping hole for Arizona right now.
Well, their whole defense is. I mean, you and I both know that. Everyone that watches them for, I don't know, any more than 10 minutes of football last year knows that.
Insert the Jonathan Gannon, the shoo, 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 shoo. But we'll now go to one of our favorite people in the world. Abbey Turner Creatives making the Buffalo Bills pick yet again. So we will throw it over there now. Let's see what our girl here has going on for the Buffalo Bills. And now for the 28th pick, we welcome on a very special guest. If you are a fan of the podcast, you know her because she is Abbey Turner Creative. Abbey, second year in a row. We finally met in the flesh a couple days ago at Steven's wedding. So I got to ask, how are you? I hope you're doing better than I'm feeling.
Yes, sir. I'm not sure I am, but we're hanging in there. We're not 20 anymore. We're getting a little bit older, and man, it's getting rough out here. But yeah, I'm so happy to be here today.
We're so happy to have you. I told you the other day, you're a celebrity on this podcast for us. So this is a big moment, as always. And I guess without further ado, I got to ask you, you're basically in the same spot as last year. End of the first round. Last year, you picked one of the bigger surprises in the entire draft. High expectations now. So what are we doing at pick 28, Abbey?
So for the 28th pick of the 2024 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Xavier Worthy, a wide receiver out of Texas.
And I was so happy when I found out this was your pick, because last year I mentioned you took DeJuan Jones, the biggest guy we'd seen in the draft. This year, you're taking the fastest guy in the draft.
Yeah.
So you are an extreme person here. Was it always going to be wide receiver for you after the, I guess, Stephon Diggs trade?
Yeah, exactly. So I think we really need to start sort of building back up our offense. Obviously, Stephon Diggs leaving and then Gabe Davis too. That's a big blow to our offense. So we sort of need to rebuild from there. I thought, honestly, Xavier would be such a fun pick, just how fast he is. I would say where I'm a little concerned is just he's a smaller dude, right? So we'll have to see how that works out. He's definitely going to have to kind of learn how that works for him in the NFL. But I'm excited. I think it could be a really good pick.
Well, Josh Allen has that massive arm. Having someone as fast as Xavier Worthy seems like a fun little matchup there. But now I got to ask too, because we're used to the Bills all of a sudden having kind of like Super Bowl aspirations.
Yeah.
This is a little bit of a unique situation. Some people are like, is this like a soft rebuild? Are they actually going for it again? As a Bills fan, what are your expectations going into the 2024 season?
I mean, Bills Mafia, I think we're always going for it. 100% we're going for it. I hate to say, I do feel like it's a little bit of a rebuilding year. I mean, just last year, there was a ton of turnover. We ended the season with a lot of injuries, offense and defense. So it'll be interesting. It feels like a young team again. But I think, the world is our oyster. Well, I guess the U.S., but if it's our oyster, I think we could do it. Yeah, I'm excited for the season. I'm excited to see what happens.
We'll hide the tables if they get Xavier Worthy, because we know Buffalo will be pretty fired up for that. But
I think so.
Abby, you are our sponsor for a reason. We read about you every week. Some of these people are new listeners, though. So I want you to tell us a little bit about what you do, why you are such a special partner of ours. We'd love to hear a little bit more about Abbey Turner Creative.
Well, you're very sweet, Wally. I love being a part of the show. I love sponsoring. I just get excited to listen to you guys every week. So I am a photographer with a marketing background, and I pretty much do it all. One-stop shop for all things marketing, creative, photography, anything you need. I act as a consultant, a designer. It's just one of those things. I can do it all.
And if you are not familiar, she has her own Instagram page at Sawdad and Sapphire, where you can see some of her own stuff for yourself. Abby's one of the creative part is good for the name, because she is one of the most creative people we have ever seen. You're the best, Abby. No, we won't stop. It's the facts. But I guess the other thing I'd say is this year, I am determined. I told you the other day at the wedding, we are going to do something together between Abbey Turner Creative and our Lost It Down. We got to figure something out, whether it be a punishment, a reward, but you're the creative mind. I want to just throw that out there, start brainstorming. We'd love to get you more involved.
I would love that. And I know we briefly mentioned it, but I think we have a lot we can do, a lot of fun we can have here. So I'm always excited to be a part of it, excited to be on. Love you guys. This is going to be a really fun season.
You're absolutely right. And it's going to be a fun season for the Buffalo Bills, too. You got Xavier Worthy here from Abbey Turner. Make sure you watch on Thursday, figure out if she is right. Last year, she drilled her pick with DeJuan Jones. But now we're going to throw it to Detroit, where Kyle's special man, Kyle Butson, isn't taking our pick this year. It's going to be our buddy Brock Chamberlain. So we'll throw it on over to Brock now. But thank you again, Abby, for everything.
Thank you.
All right, now with the 29th pick of the draft for the Motor City Kitties, we have a very special guest come on today, Brock Chamberlain, one of Steven's longtime good buddies. I got to meet him in the flesh a couple weeks ago. Brock, it's been awesome to get to know you, and it's so nice to have another Lions fan on here. How are we doing today, Brock?
Doing great, man. Excited to be here. Appreciate you guys having me. It's been an awesome couple of weeks getting to hang out with you and celebrate our boy Steve.
You're absolutely right. It's been a blast, and what a great way to almost like draw a full circle end to it, then actually have you on, make this pick for the NFC North champions. How cool is that to hear?
First time in my life, man. I haven't really gotten used to it yet. I'd love to add a couple more into the rafters, maybe a couple extra banners to go along with it.
Well, and that starts in the draft. So, Brock, I got to ask you here, pick 29, later than what you and I are at least used to drafting. What are we doing with the Detroit Lions pick?
So with the 29th pick, the Detroit Lions select Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback, Alabama.
So this is interesting because we know it's a very offensive-heavy draft, but the defense, it's the corners that seem to everybody is really looking to in this draft. Kool-Aid's a name we've been hearing for a long time. What was it about Kool-Aid McKinstry that made you think he's a Detroit Lion?
So I think there's a couple of things, right? If you look at the scheme that he plays in at Alabama, it's a lot of man coverage. And the Lions the past few years have struggled quite a bit matching up, particularly on the outside in man. And I think Kool-Aid kind of brings that X factor. Another thing is he's a 3-year starter at Alabama. There's not many people out there who have the skill set that a guy like him has, starting at 18 years old and then transitioning to the pros. I think he has an opportunity to be a day one starter for the Lions.
Well, it's really exciting too, because 29, this is a weird part of the draft because we know the board never falls the way mock drafters have it going at this stage. So I have to ask you, is it kind of like you're locked in going into this draft wanting corner, or is it just this is how the board fell for you?
So I think a lot of it has to do with how the board fell. I think for the first time in a long time, the Detroit Lions have the opportunity to draft best available. I think cornerback probably is our most pressing need, but I also think we could get better on the edge, on the defensive line, and we're not getting any younger on the offensive line either. So I think if we could get one of those three positions, that'd be great. But I think our most pressing need, probably, if you had to ask me, would be cornerback.
Well, I have to ask this too. It's been a theme of the show. The Detroit Lions now have a little bit of expectations on them. What would you say is realistic? What is the goal that I think Detroit Lions fans should have going into the 2024 season?
I think we just need to build on what we accomplished last year, right? I think it's division or bust. Definitely, I think going into this year, if we don't win the division, I kind of think that's a bit of a disappointment. I really think we're at a point where we need to take the next step, though. We have all the offensive pieces in place, and we can shut down elite passing games. I think we have the tools to get to the Super Bowl. I don't want to say it's a disappointment if we don't get to the Super Bowl, but I think that at least in Detroit and in the Lions circles, that is the expectation after last year.
Now, something that's not disappointing, at least not for me from the outside, I have to pick your brain on some of the best new uniforms we've seen in a long time coming out. How fired up are you? They're the Barry jerseys, and even the Joey Harrington blacks. You got to be on top of the world.
Yeah, I think the blues are really, really clean. Going back to the white numbers really does pay homage to Barry and the last time that we had sustained success as a franchise, which I think is great. And then I'm sure you saw the article that came out about Dan Campbell really pushing for the black jerseys. And they had talked about how if you win the division, we'll get you what you ask for. And sure as shit, he won the division. And now we got the black jersey. So I think those are really nice. I think you and I talked a little bit about it. The blue helmets still need to grow on me a little bit. But those black jerseys are very easy to look at. That's for sure.
If there was one thing that I had to change at all from anything Lion jersey related right now, can we bring back the old cartoon-looking lion on the helmet? Get rid of the little white defined stripes. I don't need them. Just bring back that goofy, big-ass, happy-looking lion on the side of the helmet. That's all I ask, Brock.
Yeah, I think that thing was pretty corny, but I also agree with you. I think it's kind of the nostalgia factor is awesome associated with it. Kind of a quick story. When I was younger, they didn't have a very good job. They didn't do a very good job outlining the lion. So the arms, when I was younger, and they're kind of out open like that, I thought that was just one big ass mouth. And so that's always kind of stuck with me with those. So when they transitioned away, I felt a little bit smarter being able to differentiate the arms and the mouth.
Okay, see, if I had a hard time figuring out what the mouth of the lion is, I'd probably want the lines in there too. So I guess I can't blame you too much.
Now I want you to go take a look at it, and you're probably going to still think I'm stupid, but go take a look at it. It's kind of, as like an 8-year-old, you might see it.
See, there's no judgment here because I'm a big hockey fan, and it didn't happen until a couple of years ago. The Minnesota Wild, I literally thought it was just a landscape of the land. I'm like, that's pretty cool. There's an animal face in there. Never knew it. So, you know what? Trust tree, you're fine. No one is ever going to judge you for big mouth lion.
When we get off of this, I'm pulling up the old Minnesota Wild logo because I honestly had no idea there was an animal in there either.
Thank you so much. That's Perfect. All I needed to hear. It makes me feel vindicated.
You taught me something today.
Thank God. We both taught each other something.
Right.
But, dude, Brock, it's been such a pleasure having you on. We're definitely going to have to add you to the rotation. You and Kyle are going to have to fight it out next year. But who knows? Maybe you guys have a couple first-round picks. Weird things happen.
A lot of weird
But
things happen.
it does. And so just thank you so much again. You're the man. Good luck to your Lions this year. Steve, I know sounds like he finally had to divorce your guys. Like the bandwagon that he was on. Me and David will stand true for you, so don't worry, Brooke.
I appreciate that. You guys have always been day ones.
Absolutely. You know it. And with that, we're going to throw it over to pick 30 now with Alex Pessell picking for the Baltimore Ravens. Thanks again, Brock. You're the man.
Appreciate you, Wally. See you, man.
And now for pick 30, we bring back a recurring guest, Alex Pessell. He's in Baltimore. He's not a Ravens fan. We have to make that perfectly clear. He was our Bengals picker last year, drilled the pick, but this year he's back. He's picking for division rival Baltimore. Alex, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well overall. I have to pick for Baltimore. I feel like I'm decently qualified for it. I watch a lot of Ravens football, not on purpose, but it's there. So I think I have a good understanding of what's going on in Baltimore here. And I listen to a lot of Baltimore Ravens talk radio driving to work sometimes, and you should hear these people complain about their team. It's unbelievable.
I can't even imagine being in a world where my team has like an MVP quarterback and competing for a division year in and year out, and they're just that consistently miserable. It's such a Ravens thing. So you get to enjoy that at least, Alex. I'm happy for you there.
You've had a good team since the inception, since the 90s, and you've been good. You've won 2 Super Bowls in 2 different eras, had nothing but pretty much good quarterback play. It's really hard to complain about what the Ravens have done in their entire history, to be quite honest with you. Elite head coaches, you could go on and on.
It's so I'm glad that you brought that up because it truly has been since day one. They've been one of the best franchises in the NFL, and they continue to do it partly because of this draft, Alex, because they are so good and patient where other teams press for need. Best player available always seems to be the mantra in Baltimore. So for pick 30, are we continuing that route and that tradition here? What are we doing?
Yes, we are continuing. I would consider this to be a drop of this player, considering some of the other wide receivers that were taken ahead of this player. So just let me know, Wally, when you're ready for me to reveal who this is.
Let's hear it, buddy.
Okay, with the 30th pick of the 2024 NFL mock draft, we are going to be selecting Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver, Texas.
So we have 2 Texas wide receivers going 3 picks here. And it's actually very fitting they're so close because while everybody is enamored by Xavier Worthy's speed and his explosiveness, there's a lot of these pre-draft scouts and guys like Daniel Jeremiah that actually prefer Adonai Mitchell to Xavier Worthy. That's why you and I were actually just talking about it off air. But this, to me, feels very Baltimore. And we were kind of torn on it. So what was the thought going into this pick?
So there's a lot here. So just looking at consensus big boards, I think Adonai Mitchell could definitely be a first-round pick. And that's saying a lot. This is a absolutely loaded, probably one of the most hyped wide receiver drafts of this century, to be quite frank with you. There is a lot of high-end talent. And even if you're taking this player late in the first round, I still think you're getting a really, really exceptional wide receiver here. Part of the reason I think this is such a good fit for Baltimore, not only is he absolutely talented, but I think the Ravens definitely need another more outside receiver here. You had OBJ leaving free agency. You brought back Nelson Aguilar, which to his credit actually didn't have too bad of a year with the Ravens if you really look at how it went down. But
he's been good since he was with the Raiders about 4 or 5 years ago. He's been a solid wide receiver.
Yeah, he gets a terrible rap for where he was drafted and all that. But like I said, I think with Todd Monken being there, and I think they set the tone last year with Eric DaCosta, they drafted Zay Flowers. They made a statement there, and he turned out to be an exceptional pick. So other than the Rashad Bateman selection a few years ago, I think overall Baltimore has really nailed some of these offensive talents that they've drafted. And I think Adonai Mitchell will be another really, really solid player for them. And like I said, with Todd Monken being on the scene now, I just think that's such a natural fit. This is a guy that originally wanted him in college. Remember, before he left Georgia to come to Baltimore. So I think that's going to continue here, where he's going to scope out that talent and really push to draft him. And I think that only helps Lamar. I mean, they were a player or two away from being AFC champs last year. So I think a player like this could really put him over the hump, because I think he's an exceptional upgrade over what they had last year.
Alex, I have to ask you before we let you go, because you are a Bengals fan, a diehard here. You had to be pretty fired up to see Brock Bowers in this mock draft fall to 18. That's got to be like the dream scenario for you Bengals fans, right?
That's a pipe dream. I mean, I think he's going to get taken in the real NFL draft ahead of that, just because I don't think you'll pass, any team's going to pass up other talent like the Colts or the Jets. I think it's slim chances that he gets past. I was reading a couple sources, for those of you who are in analytics, say there is about a 10% chance. I forget to reference what this exact website I was looking at was.
He's on like 538.
Yeah, something like that, something crazy like that. But 10% chance he makes it to the Bengals. So if that actually happens, that would be, I think, a home run pick, because they brought in at tight end the Patriots tight end, Mike Gesicki, who I think is a Brock Bowers light. Brock Bowers light, and that's super light. I think Brock Bowers is what you would want if you were a Bengals fan, just because Tyler Boyd's missing, and he's an exceptional tight end prospect, but really he's like a slot wide receiver, right? So he would fit perfectly right there. But then you kind of have two people that kind of fill the same void. But like I said, I'd be super happy if you went there.
Well, Alex, we have to thank you once again for coming on. Our Baltimore picker this year, probably going to be back, throwing his name back in the hat for the Bengals next year. So I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again. But Alex, you're the man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, go Orioles. Go Orioles.
Go O's. You heard it here first. Now we'll throw it back to us, where we're picking with the 31st pick for the San Francisco 49ers. Thanks again to Alex Pessell, a two-time picker himself on this show now, going to Donnie Mitchell. That's two wide receivers from your Texas Longhorns in 3 picks, David. You and I were texting all day. I know you had a couple guys here that you really wanted at 31 and 32, and instead you got vultured at the last minute. So I'm interested. San Francisco, what are we doing at 31 here, David?
Well, I have to be honest. If this falls any differently, I was like itching for Kool-Aid here at 31, because I think it just makes too much sense for San Francisco. Their needs are pretty much offensive line at certain parts and cornerback, and that's about it. I think I slotted Kool-Aid there, and I think because I was so confident in preparing for this that he was going to fall there. Obviously, he didn't. But that being said, with this pick, I think they end up with Ladd McConkey, which is twofold, right? One, the only reason McConkey falls this far is because he was limited with injuries this past year. He is probably the best route runner in the draft. I mean, he creates separation in his route tree, and that's something that, separates the best NFL receivers from the good ones, right? He's just difficult to cover. And 2, I think they end up taking him because Brandon Ayuk, I think, ends up being traded for draft capital, traded somewhere. Like, I think they just look at best player available. It's probably him. He's going to replace a need, and then they don't feel like they have to sign Ayuk back. They feel like maybe they can move him and either get more draft capital or just move him to not have to pay somebody $100 million for 5 years. But that's kind of what my thinking is behind that pick.
So I guess with this pick, is this an indication that you are buying the hype that Brandon Ayuk will not be a 49er on day one next year?
Yeah, because it's just taking so, and I get that it's taken long for other players before, but it just seems like it
feels a little different with him.
It does. It feels different. It feels like it's taking long, and then it feels like every day you're seeing some, BS out there about how this party's upset, this party stopped following this party on Instagram. Like I don't buy into that stuff, but at the same time, when other players hold out, you don't see a whole lot of that stuff. It's usually just, okay, like, when are we going to get this done? And then usually when you can tell it's going to go negative is when, like, leaks start to happen or the social media BS starts to happen. And that's why I just feel like they end up taking McConkey here because they know they're going to have to replace Ayuk.
I was reading earlier, too, Lance Zierlein of NFL.com compared him to Elijah Moore. That's his draft comp. And I thought that was fascinating just because you remember, too, I even to this point, he's one of those guys kind of like a Jerry Jeudy where he had so much pre-draft hype and it took 4 or 5 years for people to stop seeing the shine. It's just he has so much raw skill and he's so fast. It's one of those ironic, you know how people used to profile black quarterbacks where it was like you need to be a wide receiver? And it feels almost we have a few of the reverse this year in Cooper DeJean and in Ladd McConkey, where because they're these white guys that were almost like, oh, he's not going to be athletic enough, we'll just slip him into the slot. Where it's like McConkey can play on the outside. He's athletic enough. He has a route tree to do it. It's just kind of a lazy profiling thing. I think San Francisco would be thrilled. And in an offense like Kyle Shanahan's, it just makes all too much sense, especially with the speed. It feels like it would be a natural fit.
And I got to be honest, it hurt my next pick too because I had him I was taking him with my next pick, which is Kansas City, obviously. That was going to be my pick for Kansas City, which would have been like a home run hit for Kansas City at that position. But instead, with my Kansas City pick, I'm picking, and I'm going to butcher his name, but Jerzon Newton, I think. I don't know. Wally,
that sounds good to me. I was just saying, some of these names I haven't had a chance to go, so I'm just going to let you say it with your chest, and I'm all for it.
I don't think I've ever actually heard anyone pronounce his name, but from like a prospect perspective, he's top 3 interior defensive linemen in the draft, and I understand the Chiefs might not need interior D-line right now, but man, could you imagine stacking the D-line in Kansas City yet again and making that D-line so good that their cornerbacks can be average and still be a great defense? Because that's all they need to win Super Bowls. And I know that's not what you want to hear, but that's all my thinking was for this pick was, stack your D-line so that you can go and you can get not the best corners in the second round and the third round, and you can get a wide receiver in the second round or third round, but like take a guy who's versatile, who has I think over 100 pressures in the last 2 years. The reason he's even falling is because, again, this is a guy who had surgery on his foot. Now, I understand that scares people, but a D lineman who just fractured his foot, that doesn't scare me. I mean, Joe Thomas was an offensive lineman and played with 3 torn ligaments and muscles and whatever all season long. These guys in the trenches don't need the perfect body conditions to do their job, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think that, and I'm going to save your life too, because I don't know how to pronounce that name, but he goes by Johnny. So you can call him Johnny Newton and call that a big W.
Johnny Newton. See, that's a setup for failure. I mean, how does his whole life, they had to pronounce his name so poorly that he just started going by Johnny.
I'm Johnny now. Just call me Johnny, baby.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, too, though. I love the pick just because you heard me say it before. I think that the way I would separate it is you have Byron Murphy. Sorry, excuse me. I spaced for a minute. He's tier 1 for interior defensive line in this draft. And then there is no one else in that tier, I'd say. But then you have Chris Jenkins and Johnny Newton firmly in that second tier of defensive tackle. And then there's another gap. It just goes to show how weak this defensive class is. So if you're sitting there at 32 and you're the Chiefs and that guy's still there, which there's a real chance all 3 of the guys I just named are gone already, the Chiefs would love to add someone else like that. And with Chris Jones next to him, you could have a real scary defense.
And from the interior too, man. It is teams have been preparing for edge rushers for the last 5 to 10 years. They don't know what to look like when you get like the Williams twins in the middle, like in Minnesota from 15 years ago. You know, you get two guys who can put pressure up the middle. That's the fastest way to get to the quarterback. You got two guys who are good at it. That's a scary, scary thing to prepare for.
Especially nowadays, we're seeing football change yet again, and the pocket pushing defenses are the scariest ones in the league right now. And these guys, it's like you don't even have to forfeit your run defense because it's coming from these freak athletes on the inside who can recover if they find out it's a run real quick. So I love the pick, David. I actually, I'm shocked that he made it that far. I almost forgot that he was still available, to be honest with you, until you just read that. So Chiefs unfortunately get one there, and you know that they're probably due to trade for a wide receiver themselves in some capacity. It ain't going to just be Marquise Hollywood Brown. But that wraps us up here. We'll send it back to the show so we can finish up with the rest of the podcast. And that is going to bring us to the end of a very special episode. We hope you had as much fun as we did. It's always a blast to have all you guys on. We want you to feel a part of the show, and I think that you all do with this. So please keep following us. Help us get a little bit more push this year, and hopefully we're doing this again next year. But like I said, that's going to bring us to the end of the episode. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Loss of Down. And retweet us on Twitter at @down_loss. Remember that this episode was brought to you by the wonderful Abbey Turner Creative. Once again, unbelievable. She's the best. Guys, I guess you and me, David, we're falling apart. I'm on fumes, guys. David, I don't even know where I'm at. It's remember in Rocky where, cut me, Mick? That's where I'm at. I can't see. I'm losing it, dude. I'm falling apart.
Your references are top tier. It's all right. You're allowed to fall apart after recording 32 picks.
Oh, my God. Well, you know what? We're hoping that you're hearing this. It's either going to be Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. But please reach out to us. Anything you guys like, didn't like, you want to fix up for next year, please let us know. But, David, otherwise, do we have any final thoughts as we go into draft week?
Go Browns.
Go Browns! Congratulations once again to Steven and Kylie Weed. What an unbelievable time, an unbelievable couple. We're very excited for Steven to be back here the first week of May. And for the last time, I got to say thank you again to all of you who came on for made this show possible. We're not doing this without everybody listening and giving your feedback. So we love everybody. And make sure you pop us off on, like I said, YouTube. There's going to be all your clips. You want to see it, send them out, share them out. We'd appreciate that desperately. Otherwise, guys, go Raiders, go Browns, go Packers for you, Steven, and we will see you guys on the other side next week.